Hello everyone and welcome to another Satanic Panic Sunday. How's everyone doing? Today we are of course looking at more Satanic Panic material from the 80s and 90s and maybe even more recent. How's everyone going? How's everyone doing? Sorry, I almost misspoke. Boop. Oh, you're excited about the Bob Larson thing, Mateo? Good. Bob's hilarious. So we do have a 90s Bob Larson video that looks pretty promising, as well as some other classic Satanic Panic material. Should be good. Terradona, thank you for 33 months. Much appreciated. Good Freemason number. And we're all caught up. It is only a couple days left in September, and they are still adding bonus subs if you do gifts, so keep that in mind if anyone wants to help support the channel today. The sub counter reset overnight because I have it set to, like, add 10 on, like, if it reaches its goal. But for some reason it just reset it to 10. Which is fine. Effectively the same thing. Just less satisfying not seeing the 400-something other subs that people gifted this month. So yes, it is also Costume Month. It's nearing the end of Costume Month. I am Femi Kruger, as you can see. Pretty apropos for today, I would say. If you want to help get towards the next Costume Month, you can use the tip link in order to add to the Costume Month goal. Alright, all that out of the way. Toriador says, before I derail, check out the meme channel on your Discord. I put a spicy one in there for you. Oh god. I'm afraid. Hold on, where are memes? Where are memes? There it is. Oh, gee. Fucking Aquaman. I get it. Okay, it's fine. Oh, wow. Twitch is the #1 gift sub person right now. Why doesn't Nemesaur show up on the gift sub thing? Is it because Nemesaur's a VIP? Does it not count for some reason? It's weird. Has Bob been around longer than Alex Jones? Yes. Yes. He's also a decent amount older than Alex Jones. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into it with baby Bob Larson, shall we? Let me turn this music off, and we'll jump right in. If you could do me a favor if you're on YouTube, like the stream. Thank you. Oh, we are doing a patron and YouTube member only stream after this stream also. Now we're really done with the housekeeping. Spooky bones!
People were chained, they were beaten, they were stuck, cut, they were bled, and they would give themselves freely for this.
I remember just constant, absolute terror, and I can't explain how intense, how strong, how all-encompassing that terror is. Unless you do this, you're gonna get killed. You're gonna die.
I watched them take the lives of children. I watched them take the life of my twin brother.
They didn't deserve to live, you know? They begged by their actions to be killed.
This is inhuman. It's absolutely inhuman.
I myself would like to go and crawl back into a corner and say this doesn't happen.
People simply don't believe that this stuff goes on.
If we don't educate one another, it's going to be the crime of the 90s.
Remember in the 90s when Satanists were just everywhere? Definitely wasn't just Geraldo Rivera trying to get views. Ooh. Those graphics were expensive in the 90s. I believe it said someone did a sub, but it didn't Maybe it wasn't a gift sub. I guess it might have just been someone subscribing, but I didn't see a notification. Thank you for subscribing, whoever it was. And here we have him, Baby Bob Larson.
To most, it conjures images of medieval black masses or sinister deeds done for the devil. But simply said, Satanism is the belief that evil is excusable and attaining power to control people and circumstances is desirable. Whether you believe in a literal devil is not important in understanding Satanism's effect on our society. The evidence is in. Satan worship and satanic cults are growing rapidly, and adherents of these ideas are becoming more vocal and more dangerous. These symbols of Satanism are turning up everywhere. On walls, on clothes, on album covers.
Oh, come on, that one's a hidden Mickey.
And even on bodies of murder victims. Law enforcement officials admit that satanic cults operate in nearly every community in America.
They promise it's not just an excuse for them not to do their jobs. Tori Adore says, holy shit, he looks like a DreamWorks character. And Amber Pretzel says, I'll take things that aged like milk for 300, Mrs. Reloaded Blast.
Young children from Oregon to Massachusetts say they've been raped, tortured, and forced to watch small animals killed during satanic ceremonies.
I want to know so bad the real story behind the people talking in this. Were they mistaken? Are they, like, nuts? Did they actually go through something traumatic and there was a misunderstanding, or it was contorted by someone into something it wasn't? Were they actually victimized by mentally ill people who believed in Satan?
School officials in many cities report high school students.
Is Bob a grifter, true believer, or both? I think he's a grifter. It's always impossible to say for sure unless someone gets caught, like, saying it out loud, but I think he's more on the grifter end.
Are forming satanic groups.
I would say it's a continuum. It's not necessarily a binary. You can be both a true believer and a grifter, but I'm going to say he's closer on that scale to grifter than he is to true believer.
A Chicago policeman told us, satanic crime makes gang activity look like a nursery school.
Onda Guy, thanks for
During
following.
this program, you will see the many sides of Satanism. You'll be shocked, and you may be tempted to turn away in denial of such unspeakable horror. If you think I'm exaggerating, watch closely. Listen to what is being done in the name of Satan.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Oh, yeah, I remember this guy. He's like a quite famous serial killer, and then he claimed Satan told him to do it or something.
These were the words of Night Stalker Richard Ramirez. Ramirez is the Satan worshiper who now sits on California's death row after being convicted of 13 brutal murders. Ramirez often left satanic symbols at the scenes of his crimes, carving a pentagram on the body of one victim and on the bedroom wall of another. In his formal statement to the court at his death sentence hearing, Ramirez said, quote, "Legions of the night, I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all."
I find it so interesting, and I think I've talked about this on previous Satanic Panic streams, how culture's idea of the, like, murderous Satanist who goes around killing animals and kidnapping people and stuff started as a myth, but probably ended up accidentally inspiring actual mentally ill people to be like, I identify with that, so I'm going to take on that role and say I'm a Satanist and do things I want to do in the name of Satan. So unfortunately, I feel like covering stuff like this with Richard Ramirez and taking him seriously only served to create more people or try and bend people, not intentionally, of course, but basically spread a mind infection of, like, this identity that, like, if you were kind of mentally ill and prone towards certain things would go, I identify with that.
In San Francisco, former waiter Clifford St. Joseph was found guilty of murdering a man during an apparent satanic ritual.
I hear a
The victim-
cat. Kitty. What? What? You're meowing, what?
His body had all the signs. A pentagram had been carved in his chest, the body had been drained of its blood, he'd been sexually abused, and one of his testicles had been cut off.
Just one? It's interesting. It's interesting that it was not symmetrical.
Dade County, Florida, Frank Fuster and his wife were convicted of ritually abusing children at the daycare center they operated in their home. Children at the center said the Fusters made them drink urine, eat feces, and engage in sex acts during preschool games.
Was this the preschool one that turned out to be a hoax? And basically, they fucked over the people who worked there over nothing?
The case horrified the community, and the prosecutor called the Fusters' systematic abuse of the children, quote, outrageous.
Or was this one a real one?
And in the longest trial in American history, children who attended the McMartin preschool...
There we go. The McMartin preschool one I know has turned out to be a thing where, like, a therapist trying to do hypnosis on the kids implanted memories. I don't know about the previous one, but the McMartin one wasn't true.
Manhattan Beach, California, told of seeing teachers in dark robes, watching small animals killed, playing sexual games, drinking blood, and eating feces, in a trial that many say was botched.
Did they accidentally watch Sallow?
None of the defendants was found guilty, but 7 of the 12 jurors said they believed the children had been abused, and virtually every expert familiar with the case believes a satanic cult was operating out of the school.
Every expert in satanic cults believes this. Also, I like how he's like 7 of the 12 thought this thing, so not enough to convict? Okay.
Of all the crimes committed in the name of Satan, the most heartbreaking involved children. For young victims of
let's use children as props. Your little sweater.
Satanism, the joy.
Sorry, I find it hard to take Bob as seriously here because he's just kind of like Twink Bob.
Joy of childhood gives way to pain, darkness, and fear. Sometimes that pain comes from strangers, sometimes from their own families. We've talked with a number of adults.
Overthought with 100-bit says 8 homosexuals. Or 8 homosexual Satanists in a Wendy's.
Who tell stories of being
I miss Rob.
Raised in families where satanic rituals were part of everyday life. For many adult survivors, their childhoods were filled with torture, sexual abuse, cannibalism, and murder.
I was forced to help kill other children. I was forced to participate in their cannibalism.
I hate listening to the interviews of Satanic Panic people, because there's usually, again, a spectrum of how much you can tell they've been either manipulated or if they're, like, off. Like, something, don't get me wrong, especially for a lot of these people, stuff that's traumatic may have happened to them, just not the things they're specifically describing.
Esther grew up on the East Coast. Today, she lives thousands of miles away. But her childhood memories of bizarre satanic rituals
More of a
remain.
West Coast Satanist.
In the outside world, her parents were active members of their community, involved in church, school, and organizations like Little League and Girl Scouts.
Vinegar Donut, thanks for
On
following.
the inside, behind closed doors, they and other members of their satanic cult forced Esther to endure repeated ritualistic attacks on her body and her mind.
There was a circle, and I was put in the middle of the circle, and there was a fire around me.
In the house?
During that part, I was told I
can't see Twitch chat? Oh yeah, why is that? That's weird. I don't know why that's not
was being
working.
married
We'll have to fix that later.
Satan and being a child of Satan forever. And,
Thanks, Vinegar Donut.
that kind of stuff. And then I was pulled out to the front of the circle beyond the fire, and then raped by the men in the cult.
Most vividly, I recall about torture. I remember a lot of it very vividly.
This piece of shit is exploiting them. That's what Bob does all the time. We've seen it in his exorcism videos. He finds vulnerable people, often who are suffering from some sort of actual trauma, and then it gets twisted into this supernatural thing.
Being tied hand and foot and burned on my genitals.
Karen grew up across the country from Esther.
Thanks for the link.
Her parents were also well regarded in their community. But they too led a dark and secret life from which Karen is still struggling to recover. Today, she edits a national newsletter for other survivors of satanic cults. Karen's abuse was so extreme, she often passed out from internal hemorrhaging and pain. She remembers being raped by cult members and shut away for hours in a dark, scary place.
It was actually a closet and a welded wire cage, and the bottom of the cage would be open. That would be how I would be put in it and suspended in a closet. And it was a very simple thing that they did. They just set a board inside the door and then dumped a bunch of snakes in on the floor, which I could see. They were probably even harmless snakes, but I was a child. And then they shut the door and left me in there in the dark, and I could hear it.
I was forced to eat human waste, yes.
Christy also suffered horrible abuse at the hands of her family and their satanic cult. Even as a toddler, Christy says her parents forced her to participate in gruesome rituals, drinking blood, eating feces, and killing children.
How would she remember it that young? And in fairness, I don't remember much of my childhood at all, so I guess my barometer's pretty fucked up. But do you really remember vividly as like a toddler, things happening with a clear narrative? Like, I even have flashes of like, oh yeah, there's like a vibe or a feeling or something, but not like experiential, narrative-driven memory.
Christy
Days of Proxy, thanks for a 50-stream streak.
Finally escaped from her family and underwent years of therapy. Now she can talk calmly about the years of abuse she suffered at the hands of her Satan-worshipping parents.
I remember being drug out of bed at midnight and taken to this dark cemetery where they would have rituals going on, satanic services, or various things, and there'd be people chanting in the black robes. And I remember one of the first experiences as a teenager where I watched
Common to have missing memories when suffering abuse, so I've heard. I also wonder for stuff like this, how often, and I'm not making any accusations against this woman, like I said, I'm fully willing to accept that actual abuse took place, probably not to what they remember exactly, but yeah, I'm willing to imagine that some of these people were abused. I wonder, a certain percentage must have been a Munchausen's thing though, right? What percentage of like 80s, 90s satanic panic survivors were people just making up stories in order to try and get attention? Again, I'm not making any accusations against anyone specific. It's just an interesting thought.
Them sacrifice a little boy, and he was blonde hair, blue eyes, just this beautiful little boy. He was about 5 years old, and he was groomed for this. And they constantly said to him, "Don't cry, don't cry. This is what you were born for." I did find myself screaming out at the injustice of it. And the high priest at one point came over and tried to shut me up. And I said to him, "God's going to get you for this." And he took me from the tree where I had been tied to observe.
Then everyone
and
clapped.
put me in a pit. And in this pit, there were the remains of human sacrifices, of babies, of animals, and snakes that they used in the various ceremonies.
There was just a pit in the cemetery that's still open with dead bodies from previous ceremonies and no one noticed? You see what I mean? I'm not even saying she doesn't believe this story. I'm saying this story didn't happen because it doesn't make sense.
And in this pit, they put a cover over it and left me there for quite some time. I'm not sure how long. I lost track of time. I no longer knew when it was daylight or when it was dark because of the covering. And every so often, they'd come and just take the covering off and just stand at the top of this pit and taunt me, "Where's your God now?" And they threw human flesh, baby flesh down. And that's what I was to survive.
Just the excess baby flesh they had on hand.
If I was to survive.
They made it to be like it was a great privilege to eat the bodies. I mean, the girl that I had to kill, they treated me like I was being given a great gift when they gave me a part of her body that I had to eat. I remember being horrified, but knowing that my horror would not let me survive and that I had to put my horror somewhere else. The same thing happened when I had to have oral sex with a bunch of dogs. You know, that what they were doing was they were cutting out the dogs' penises and stuff, and they made me have oral sex to bring out the penis so that they could cut them off. And I had to do that. I know that there were at least 12 dogs in there, and there might have been more. I mean, I never really stopped to count. I just remember that there were a lot of them.
I don't mean to be crass, but I feel like there's easier ways to get dogs to get boners than to have someone fillet them. What in the world?
You know, I couldn't have any reaction, and I couldn't go throw up and wash myself and all those things I wanted to do because I would be punished or killed.
They threatened me constantly with loss of life, my own life, the lives of others. I watched them take the lives of children. I watched them take the life of my twin brother when we were just 4. I watched them kill animals.
Did we check if she ever had a twin brother?
And then as I grew up, the threats became a little bit more subtle. It was always just, don't talk. And that was real hard to deal with, you know, because people say, well, why didn't you ever say anything? Well, when you have such vivid memories of seeing your brother die, then you know not to talk.
I wish it had never happened. I wish it never happened to anybody. I wish the losses have been tremendous. The pain has been overwhelming. The struggle has been a lifetime of struggle.
The incredible stories told by survivors come out in words and in the artwork they create. Sometimes the art is done as part of therapy. Sometimes it occurs during a private moment when a survivor tries to make sense of what's happened. These drawings by survivors from all over the country reflect similar memories of torture and rape at the hands of satanic cults. Baby killings, ritualistic rape, cannibalism. It seems like the stuff of supermarket tabloids or trash
Alien
TV.
Deep Dish says therapists can maybe accidentally insert memories. Studies were done on this. Yeah, I actually have a book here. I have a book here, who was this by? Fab Press presents a spectacular optical book, Satanic Panic, Pop Cultural Paranoia in the 1980s. And this actually has a whole section that talks about the specific therapist that was involved in inserting a lot of these memories. And one of the things he ended up doing was he became romantic partners with one of his main patients, one that went out in the media a lot and talked about all of this, and it was so inappropriate. He basically groomed people into being evidence for his satanic theories by helping insert false memories into them during sessions. It's really sick shit. What was his name? I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the section that it was from. Because this is basically a collection of various essays on the Satanic Panic with visual, you know. Let's see. Michelle Remembers is the name of the book that she wrote that was featured on Oprah. Pazder is his last name. Pazder. Where's his first name in here? Dr. Lawrence Pazder. There he is. Yeah, he was like big in this shit. He was a huge piece. Sorry, I know I'm just saying shit a lot. Real24 says, did y'all know Gary Gygax, the guy who created D&D, was a Jehovah's Witness? I was in his old house yesterday. Oh, neat. I did know that.
We could dismiss all of this easily, except for so many similar stories told by so many survivors. The reality of Satanism is even more believable when you talk to reputable therapists like those here at Columbine Hospital in Denver, Colorado. They believe the survivors are telling the truth. Linda Young is a psychiatric nurse who works with adult survivors of satanic cults. Her goal is to help them move beyond the trauma of their experiences into healthy, happy lives.
Most of these people come to us thinking what's happened to them isn't true. They don't want it to be true, so they go back and forth. We call it the true, not true experience. When they're in a memory, they know it's true, and then they let the emotion out, and it's very true, and then the emotion goes away, and they say, oh, maybe it didn't happen.
That's interesting.
So that letting the world know
Hey, Robo
that
Twilight.
it's true. Many of them know that that will never happen, or it's a very good possibility in our lifetime that most people will not ever begin to believe that this is really going on. It's very important for them that they know that I believe them, that I know this happened to them, that I have no doubt that this happened to them.
All right, this is one where we have backward writing.
Dr. Walter Young is head of the unit that treats adult survivors at Columbine, one of the few inpatient units in the entire United States. Dr. Young has treated or consulted on about 100 such cases. Today, he receives referrals from therapists throughout the country.
Says that she remembers and can cry.
I guess the thing that's most compelling to me as a clinician is to hear reports from a variety of patients who do not have contact with each other, who report very similar stories, and stories which are shocking and alarming about murder and sacrifice of human beings, cannibalism, sexual promiscuity, in what appears to be a very ritualized, planned setting, using not only children, both boys and...
The problem is that these stories filtered into the media. So once it's in the media, it doesn't matter if the people don't know each other. Those narratives pervade the culture to the point where they're basically old wives' tales that everyone is familiar with, so they can insert themselves in those situations, even if they're unfamiliar with them in real life. Again, I'm not making any specific accusations against anyone. I'm saying when people are vulnerable and experience trauma, especially if they're seeing certain therapists that might have an agenda and try to put them down certain paths, they might start remembering things that aren't true, that might conform to certain expectations of either the therapist or culture at large regarding abuse, satanic abuse, whatever.
Girls, but adults as well. We also hear similarities in reporting of being buried alive and then being unearthed and told that they've been reborn in the name of Satan. We have stories of people being married to Satan in marriage ceremonies. There are repeated reports of serial sexual assaults with the impregnation of a young adolescent and the destruction of that child, often by the mother itself, in the name of Satan. More recently, we're beginning to hear more specific techniques of indoctrination and torture. Torture is very frequently used to one, strengthen the individual to maintain secrecy within the cult, that is intimidation. It's also considered something to be desired by cult, that is the toleration of pain, the mixing of pain and sexual experiences and blurring the boundaries between them. But it's, quote, to make a good soldier for Satan.
What we're dealing with at this point, in my belief anyway, is a well-organized religious and cult-based group that is widespread.
Myra Riddell is a private therapist and the driving force behind the Ritual Abuse Task Force of the Los Angeles County Women's Commission. Experts like Riddell are convinced Satanists can be found at every level of society. They are also convinced that the number of practicing Satanists is growing.
Feels like satanic McCarthyism.
According to Riddell, it's hard to get accurate information on satanic cults because they exert almost total control over their members and their young victims.
Wow, how incredibly convenient. They're hiding behind every corner, but you just can't find them. Huh. Weird. That's absolutely nuts. Hey, Lady Burb Johnson, welcome.
There
But
are
he can
several
make it.
purposes to this kind of control. One, it permits the rituals to go on with the complete cooperation of the individual who is being sacrificed in whatever way, whether it's being killed or burned or sexually used for the ritual purposes. And the other is one that concerns many of us a great deal, and that is that these kids who are being this brainwashed are being inculcated into a belief in Satanism on a very basic, unconscious level.
Wait, you're more concerned about that than the rapes that you think are happening? I think that speaks volumes. Fennikagami says, isn't it interesting how it sounded to me like he was describing a Christian cult to me? Yeah, they would have been better served having a division not made up for satanic, like, cults, but, like, I don't know, abuse by not necessarily just religious officials, but anyone over children, coaches, stuff like that. Like, what a waste of resources.
We, in fact, and they, in fact, are trying to raise a whole generation of Satanists.
In the past, satanic cults have maintained their membership by raising their own children within the cult. Now experts see an alarming new trend. Survivors say that satanic groups are establishing preschools and daycare centers for the sole purpose of recruiting vast numbers of small children.
We are hearing from those survivors that there is a deliberate and concerted and well-organized, well-orchestrated effort to infiltrate the preschool system.
And here's the spy shark.
Psychologist Catherine Gould is known nationally for her work in treating ritually abused children.
Don't send your kids to preschool, moms and dads of America. Mom needs to stay home and shouldn't go to work, okay? And it's not because of backwards evangelical values regarding the role of women in society. It's because, checks notes, Satanists are recruiting them in daycare centers. Yeah, let's go with that.
She's deeply disturbed that Satanists are preying on children at such an early age.
Screaming at the Radio, thanks for a 25 stream streak, says, watched both Janny documentaries last night. You did an excellent job eloquently explaining what was going on. Really great. Thank you.
The purpose is to achieve an indoctrination at an early formative age when a child is going to be most susceptible to being emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually hooked to the cult and hooked for life. The idea is that you get the child under the age of 6, you abuse them, you indoctrinate them, you use them for cult purposes, you break them down, you strip them of any sense of free will, you strip them of any sense of connectedness to family or to the positive parts of society, and you have somebody who functions for the purposes of the cult. And the idea there, of course, is that the cult can call upon that person later in life.
Doreen Kenny is one parent who suspects that her daughter was the victim of satanic abuse at a preschool in Southern California.
She had stomach aches, she had headaches, she would complain about various limbs hurting her, I mean, screaming with pain, just absolutely screaming with pain. Night terrors, just horrible, horrible night terrors. She regressed from a 3-year-old to a 2-year-old, and she was back in diapers. Finally, one day, after being in school about 6 months, a little over 6 months, she had told my oldest daughter she was poked. And once that came out, I knew, because of all the things that had been going on, I just knew in my heart that she had been molested.
She certainly could have been, sadly. Connecting this to Satanism is a different thing, though, altogether. Some of the symptoms that she described are symptomatic textbook of, like, a young child who has been molested, so...
At first, Kenny assumed her daughter...
Ashley One Up says, I wonder what year the Satanists decided to stop indoctrinating the kids and handed over the gays to give it a try. As we all know, homosexuals have recently handed it over to trans people to indoctrinate the children. The furries are next. Get ready, we're about to hand you the baton.
Daughter was the victim of sexual abuse, and she placed the little girl in therapy. Over many months, however, the real story began to unfold. Kenny discovered that her daughter had been subjected to various forms of sexual and ritualistic abuse that paralleled activities common to satanic cults. 6 years later, her daughter is still haunted by fear.
The most frightening stuff that is still with her is she believes she's being watched. Every red car and black car that goes by is watching her. Every lady that dresses in blue are kidnappers. They will kidnap kids. These are things that she's been told. She has at one point, and as she continues...
Who told her that? Like, if you had these allegations and you thought this was happening at school, wouldn't this be followed up on? Like, again, I'm not saying nothing happened to this kid. What she described are, again, symptomatic of a kid who has been abused. But, like, why is there not further activity on this?
And therapy gets better and better.
Who do you think did this?
But at one point...
What are you doing?
Believe very much so that she was a child of Satan, and that she actually had Satan's heart put into her. She still has trouble with that when you get palpitations, that her heart...
Who told her that? How would a child get that in their head?
Going to explode, that because she's told.
By whom?
Dr. Roland Summit is a psychiatrist who treats child ritual abuse victims at Harbor UCLA Medical Center.
Wait, what's his name?
Who treats child ritual abuse victims at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. He says many satanic cults use intimidation, fear, and even drugs to make children keep quiet.
Children report being given drugs, which makes them feel sleepy, makes them forget.
Royal Ann with a $2 super chat says she wouldn't get money.
They're told they're going to have an operation. When they regain consciousness, they have what looks like a scar, which disappears, a kind of scratch on their skin.
Wow, that's very convenient that the scar completely disappears. I wonder how that scar from major surgery completely disappears with no signs it was ever there.
And they're told that something has been implanted inside of them. It may be a bomb, it may be the part of an animal that's been killed, and that will know if they're thinking about telling, and it will become armed and it will destroy them. So when children think about telling, and when they get nervous, there's a throbbing in their head, which they interpret as the bomb ready to go off, or a churning in their stomach, which may be the dog chewing at them. And from a child's point of view, they are now booby-trapped against telling.
It seems that Satanists will use all sorts of elaborate and insidious schemes to keep their young victims under control. Consider the case of Ed Gallup, a Protestant minister, his wife Mary Lou, and their son Chip. All three were convicted of sexually abusing children at the 2 preschools they operated in Roseburg, Oregon.
So he's a Christian. You just said he was a Protestant. That's not satanic. What are you talking about? This is explicitly a Christian person doing this. What?
The children...
But actually, it was satanic because, well, if he wasn't, that would be very inconvenient to the narrative we're trying to paint, wouldn't it?
Told stories of ritualistic animal killings and sexual abuse with carrots, bottles, and sticks. Judge William Laswell, who prosecuted the Gallups when he was a district attorney, says the family intimidated their young victims by saying they had magic glasses capable of seeing into the children's homes.
Chip, the youngest of the Gallups, had a pair of magic glasses, which is simply an oversized set of sunglasses you would buy at a carnival. The mother had a set too, and the father. And the children told us that Chip Gallup would get up on the stage, put the glasses on, turn in the direction of where the child lived, and then make some observation about whether the child finished breakfast, put away his pajamas, left some tracks on the carpet. What would have happened is that Chip would have called the family and learned something about what happened that morning. And so when Chip told them that he could see into their home and tell them something that they knew had happened, they believed that he in fact could see them and hear them wherever they were. And he had threatened to kill their parents and harm them if they talked. In addition, he'd given them, most of them, a photograph of himself, which he asked to have displayed in their bedroom so that he was always looking at them that way too.
That didn't put up any red flags for parents. Ashley One Up says it's Jack Chick rules. They aren't the right type of Christian, therefore Satan. Makes sense.
Crime crimes committed in the name of Satan are beginning to receive special attention by police officials.
Seems like a good use of their time.
Several departments have established occult crime units and are learning to spot the evidence of satanic activity.
That's unironically incredibly embarrassing, and every police department that has ever done that should be humiliated publicly for all time.
A number of investigators are working to uncover the links between
Beelzebub 513, thanks for 2 months.
Survivor stories and existing cults. Others are looking into the possibility of a national or international conspiracy involving satanic groups. There's much to be learned, and law enforcement officials are just beginning to scratch the surface. But across the country, police investigators agree a disturbing trend is emerging. The most vicious crimes being committed in the name of Satan are being perpetrated by young people in their teens. Pete Rowland and 2 other members of his satanic cult clubbed a 4th boy to death in the woods of rural Missouri. The group had been practicing satanic rites for years, torturing so many animals to death they lost count of the number. They were obsessed with satanic books.
Torturing animals is a sign of being a serial killer. Like, it's a clinical diagnosis. Like, that's actually, I don't think that's in the DSM. I'm not actually sure. No, it might be for, like, sociopathy, torturing and murdering animals. Anyway, generally speaking, it's a sign in youth that, yeah, they might do some fucked up shit.
Gory movies and heavy metal music. After the brutal murder,
I'm sure it was the heavy metal music and not that he was a sociopath or anything. Moira Soma, thanks for gifting a sub, almost on a hype train.
Rowland said songs by the rock group Metallica drove him and his friends into a frenzy as they planned the attack.
Counter evidence, everyone else who listens to Metallica that hasn't ritualistically murdered people, which is the majority.
Eddie Krigler, an Arkansas youth, claimed he was acting under direct orders from Satan when he beat his...
What if he had an ABBA record? Would they have been like, fans of ABBA have been connected to at least 7 ritual murders? Nemesaur, thanks for gifting 10 tier 1 subs to the community. Twitch added 2 extra. Very nice.
Parents with a 5-foot...
Yeah, Twitch is doing the thing where they add on over 5 subs. So, that's cool. 25% to level 2 on a hype train.
Club then stabbed them repeatedly with the same butcher knives he used to perform satanic rites.
Hats off. What do you want me to wear for the hats off, Peep Lord?
Time of the attack, Krigler was recruiting other teenagers to form a satanic cult. In New Jersey, 14-year-old Tommy Sullivan...
Put the wig on the stack of DVDs behind me? That's interesting, but I'll allow it. I'll allow that. That's fine. That's a weird request, but I'll accept that. Okay. What's that? Are you satisfied?
Stabbed his mother a dozen times with his Boy Scout knife. After that, Sullivan slit his own throat. Just weeks before the attack, he told a friend that Satan appeared to him in a vision, ordering him to kill his family. For Ricky Casso, involvement in Satanism led to murder and
What's the DVD stack's pronouns? She, her. Moira Soma, thanks for gifting a sub to Avalon of Babylon.
Suicide. Casso and his friends formed a cult called Knights of the Black Circle. One night, they turned on another teen, Gary Lowers, forced him to say, "I love Satan," and gouged out his eyes before stabbing him to death. The day after he was arraigned, Casso hanged himself with a bedsheet.
Jesus. Again, this is like fucked up true crime stuff, but it's not satanic. Overthought, thanks for gifting 5 tier 1 subs. Bonus from Twitch again. Thank you.
Satanism is on the rise, and it is the crime of the 90s.
Randy
Satanism's the
Eamon
crime
is a
of the
police
90s.
officer who spends much of his time investigating crimes that have links to the occult. Eamon believes the lure of Satanism is too powerful for many young people to resist.
The danger of Satanism and the occult to society, I liken to a narcotic. It's addictive. It's power they're seeking. And when they find out that they toyed with a ritual and that ritual worked, they're hooked. It's just like the hook in the side of their mouth as a fish. It takes them one step further, and pretty soon the hook is not on the side of the mouth.
Hey,
They've
Andy
swallowed
News
it
69,
completely.
welcome.
And it is a magnet, and it is a magnet that they can't go away from. It just draws them further and further and further. And pretty soon, they're not going with just lightweight rituals. They're graduating from candle rituals to wearing the costumes, the regalia with the ritual swords. They're going to the black hoods, to the animal sacrifices, and where may that take them? To human sacrifice.
Human sacrifice. That's how far Sean Sellers went. Today, Sean is in solitary confinement on death row at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. Sean was just 15 years old when he was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death for 3 cold-blooded murders, including that of his mother and stepfather. Murders he committed in the name of Satan.
I was mad at my parents. I was doing destruction rituals, you know, saying, Satan, kill him, get him out of my life. I tried to move out. They came and got me, wouldn't let me move out. And it just built up to the point to where I did it. I had this dream over and over again that I'd kill my parents, you know, that I'd sacrifice them to Satan in my dream. And like I said this before, I woke up and it wasn't a dream. You know, it was reality. It really happened.
The murders took place in this house, in a well-kept Oklahoma City suburb where Sean and his parents lived. On the night of March 6, 1986...
Sounds kind of like a mental health issue, assuming he's not making some sort of excuse for himself. Sounds like genuine mental health issues.
Dressed in black...
Like delusional mental health issues of an incredibly severe variety.
Wearing a black hooded cape, Sean tiptoed into his parents' bedroom as they slept, pulled out a .44 Magnum revolver, and shot them both in the head. Later, he went back to their room, looked at the dead bodies, and laughed. What could have driven a young man to such violence?
Mental illness?
On the outside, they looked like a happy family. But the real story was different. From early childhood on, Sean was shuttled from relative to relative, or left with babysitters. At 10,
see again, the focus on, oh my goodness, there's not a stay-at-home mom. He's being watched by relatives and daycare centers. Weird emphasis. It's almost like this is entirely a scare tactic to stop women from entering the workforce and gaining autonomy.
Satanism.
Sorry, I'm gonna repeat that. That's a lot of the satanic panic stuff, is basically, you need a stay-at-home mom. You need someone to be home for the kids, otherwise they're gonna get molested and murdered by Satanists.
Sean was hooked. By the time he was...
Kind of the undercurrent, at least of the evangelical variety of this. Stone Corbell, thanks for gifting a sub and getting us over, I think, level 5. Thank you very much.
In high school, Satanism dominated his life. He formed a satanic coven with a group of his friends. He kept a satanic diary and illustrated it with satanic symbols.
Oh man, he's so evil. Wow.
He built an altar in his bedroom where he performed secret ceremonies. He wrote incantations to Satan, sometimes in his own blood. And he drank his blood regularly.
Yeah, this is a person who is detached from reality.
I began to drink blood because it gave me a rush.
Who's the stay-at-home mom to the fur babies? Me, I guess. I work, but I work here, so I guess me.
Gave me a thrill. You know, it was like, wow, I'm drinking blood, you know. And then I began...
Irony.
To like it. You know, the taste of it, I liked the taste of it. It was a very strange taste, and I liked it. And it got to the point where I had to carry blood around with me all the time, because if I didn't, I'd get to thinking about it, and that'd be all I could think about.
Thanks for subscribing on YouTube.
Like, you know, I needed it.
Even at school, there were signs of Sean's deepening involvement in Satanism. When his teacher assigned an essay on how students had grown spiritually, Sean wrote about his dedication to the devil. He even read his satanic books in class.
Gasp! Panagami says, honestly, I wonder if part of what happened was the awareness of cults and their horrors spread. People latched onto Satanism as a way to deal with the cognitive dissonance, and it warped from there. A similar thing may have also happened during Stranger Danger in trying to explain away widespread child molestation.
Yet no one intervened.
It seems like everybody was seeing that something needed to be done, that something was going on, and they were taking steps towards that, but they were all afraid to call my parents or to sit me down or whatever and do something to really...
By the way, I think the widget I use normally for Twitch chat is busted for the moment, which is why it's not showing. I apologize. I don't think I can fix it on my end. So I'm sorry that there isn't chat like usual.
Make a commitment and do something.
7% to level 6 on the hype train.
Because it was, maybe it was because they thought if it was, you know, Satanism or something, you know, maybe it was religious and we can't get involved in religious things or whatever.
Things continued to get worse until the night of September 8, 1985, when Sean and his friend Richard decided to undertake the ultimate satanic act.
We had decided we were going to break all the 10 Commandments to show Satan that we were completely dedicated to him.
I thought the ultimate satanic act was a devil's three-way.
And we only had one more commandment to break, thou shalt not murder. And that's what that night was to be. That night was to be this sacrifice, get rid of these people who didn't matter anyway, who were in our way, who, by the instructions in the Satanic Bible, you know, said that they didn't deserve to live, you know? They begged by their actions to be killed. I'm on death row. I am at the bottom of the American life, you know? I'm at the bottom. I am the most hated person in America. Death row inmates, nobody likes. Death row inmates have no hope. That's what Satanism's given me.
George Berlanger was also seduced into Satanism as a teenager. Now he's 27.
This young J.D. Vance. Broha, thanks for 37 months. Peep Lord says women should work, huh? And then there's a link.
See why I like him best.
Basic Quark, it's good business. For thousands of years, Ferenginar has allowed a valuable resource to go to waste.
Okay, I gotta stop it there for copyright reasons. Females.
Stable, married, the father of a little girl. But his teen years grew violent as he became more and more deeply engulfed in satanic
30 seconds
beliefs.
on the hype train.
I was going to kill my parents. At one point, I took knives and I started down the hall. And I was going to cut my parents up.
That's messed up,
and for
man.
some reason it stopped. I was very cold, very demanding, very physically violent to my parents. Very physically violent. I used to punch my dad out. I used to hit my mom. I mean...
You're gonna blame this on Satanism?
The whole night without any remorse at all. At this point, my parents were so afraid of me. They were afraid. They were afraid for their lives. They put a deadbolt lock on their door.
Thank you for the
That's
hype
how
train,
afraid
everyone.
they were.
Much appreciated.
In their own house.
Like many other teenagers who become heavily involved in Satanism, George came from a troubled family. His father was an alcoholic who abused George and his mother. George took out his anger at school and was expelled at 16. After that, he became totally immersed in Satanism, obsessed with performing rituals, sacrificing animals, and drinking blood.
It kind of seems like he seeked out alternate stuff because he felt alienated by society and his family at large, and that was a symptom along with the anger and other things. Not trying to justify anything he did in terms of, like, hurting people, but, like, it seems like he was facing a lot of problems at home, and because of that, turned to things that are by their very nature, not by their nature, I guess, by their reputation on the fringes of society, because that's how he felt. So he felt some sort of, what's the word I'm thinking of? He felt a kinship with it because it was considered an outsider belief, right?
It is a communion to the devil. The way that you ritualistically take the blood, do the spells with the blood, and ingest the blood is doing a communion to Satan. And when you ingest the blood, it is to accumulate power.
It would be more comfortable to think the stories we've heard are fabricated, or the exploits of a lunatic fringe. But if we believe the experts, Satan worship
you're the expert?
is undeniably real, and Satan worshipers pose a serious threat to society's well-being. During this program, we've heard from many victims of Satanism about tragic, alarming, and nearly fatal encounters with devil worship. We've listened to those who participated willingly and those who were victimized against their wills. We've heard reports of innocent children raised in a brutal environment of torture, and teenagers who were compelled to commit crimes and to kill in the name of Satan. All these accounts could make us question our fundamental faith in the decency and goodwill of humanity. But what we've seen should compel us to act responsibly and address the root causes of this terrible malevolence in our midst. Satanism thrives on secrecy. Its existence depends on concealment. That's why the bravery of the people you've listened to during this program is so phenomenal. They've spoken out. Even under the threat of intimidation,
I'm telling you, that one in, like, the bottom left corner looks like the Mickey from, like, remember in the early 2000s? Like, this is the Disney Channel. Bum, 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 bum. You know what I'm talking about?
and death. Their courage comes from knowing that breaking the silence will save others from the anguish they endured or committed. Think about the remarkable
I'm Bob Larson, and welcome to Disney Channel.
In all these stories, and the blunt honesty of those who have suffered so much. See beyond the atrocity of Satanism. And remember that many victims are still imprisoned by the fear that no one will help them, and no one will believe them. The seduction of Satanism will end when you and I confront this national tragedy by marshaling the forces of our schools, churches, community organizations, law enforcement associations, and social agencies. We must expose all the evil being done.
And it was all because I thought that Satanism would promote me. I thought that Satanism was the ideal of self-preservation and would make me successful, would make me the person that I wanted to be. That's the biggest lie that I've ever seen.
I really believe that survivors need to know that there's hope, that they can live through this.
This is my truth as I know it. And I know that I didn't make it up because I know I was there. And I know that there will be people who will never believe it. It's very, very difficult to confront the reality of this, because once you confront the reality of this, you feel such a tremendous sense of responsibility to do something.
Geesh, Bob. Exploitative much? Let's see what is next.
Because of the program's theme and controversial subject matter, parental discretion should be exercised.
You have to give a blood sacrifice to Satan. It's supposed to keep you protected. It's supposed to keep you pure.
They said that if we told that the devil would come and kill our parents.
It doesn't matter if you believe in Satan.
This is Geraldo Rivera's famous special, Satanism Hidden in Plain Sight.
It doesn't matter if you believe in demons. What's important is to know that there are people
demons
out there
believe
that
in
do,
you.
and they're willing to do anything to accomplish
Thanks,
their goal.
demons.
Satanism is more than a hodgepodge of mysticism and fantasy, more than a Halloween motif. It's a violent impulse. It preys on the emotionally vulnerable, especially teenagers, often lonely and lost.
It basically started out like the killing of animals. Then there's always the heavy metal music, and drugs don't help.
It attracts the angry and the powerless, who often sink into secret lives.
They asked me if I had ever thought about killing somebody just to watch them die, and they asked me if I would like to join a satanic cult.
A very real thing that happened. Hey, you ever kill anyone just to watch him die? Yeah, like the song. Shot a man in Reno just to watch him die.
An obsessive fascination with sex and drugs, and yes, heavy metal rock and roll. Satan's child. Often Satanism seems to be a personal psychodrama, a kind of license for strange, sometimes violent behavior.
A bloodbath would be a cleansing and purification of a planet
that has been dirtied and degraded for too long.
Sometimes it's just half-baked mumbo-jumbo and scrawled symbols. But other times it goes deeper, deadly.
Tommy died as brutally as his mother did, but at his own hands.
I loved him dearly, but he also took my wife, who I loved.
Satanism goes far beyond teenage obsession. Today there are cults that worship the devil, engage in secret ceremonies, believe in ancient or bizarre theology, all of it constitutionally protected, as long as no laws are broken.
Is that supposed to be a bad thing? All of it constitutionally protected as long as no laws are broken. Yes? Correct? Yeah, that's good. We all agree that's good, right? We're just gonna start making shit illegal because we don't like it?
I believe that hate is necessary in a controlled way just as much as love is necessary.
The other face of adult Satanism is violent and fiendish, centered on sexual ritual and torture, frequently descending into the vilest crime of all, sexual abuse of children.
He has drawn pictures of child being sacrificed. He's talked about animal sacrifices. He's disclosed molestation.
And what of their own children? Some are born into satanic cults and grow up as lifelong members.
They're literally just showing really shitty, like, stick tattoos that these kids did to themselves. What's this one even supposed to be? Is this supposed to be a cross? Oh, kid. Oh, practice on something else. Don't practice on yourself. This is terrible. This is bad.
Others are desperate to flee, but dread the penalty of grotesque death.
They're going to catch me, it don't matter. I can run and run and run. They're always going to catch me because they're all over.
And beyond the mayhem and monsters, it's said that a nationwide network of satanic criminals exists. Start with the
Who says that?
warped and wicked Charles Manson.
It's everything that human beings don't understand.
Charles Manson isn't satanic. He's a dipshit. He wanted to start a race war and then survive in the woods. The man is cooked in the head. I don't think he could make it much clearer. He basically labeled himself as such.
It's all their fears, it's what they're not sure of. You dig what I'm saying? Satan to me would be God.
Or the demented son of Sam killer David Berkowitz. These and others, purportedly linked to the devil worship underground.
Where's Satan? Here's Satan. Yes, Satan.
Satanism was the lead poisoning we had along the way.
It's all over the United States and probably all over the world because it's just something that people are experimenting with now.
Impossible to measure, easy to doubt. The very mention of it invites ridicule.
Come out.
No, I won't let her go. No.
Often the choice is to avoid confronting it, ignore it, find other explanations, or laugh it off. That is not the choice we have.
I want to set up an experiment, and it's going to be like a fake thing like that, where people are exorcising demons, but everyone is in on it, except the one person. It would be multiple people coming in one at a time to do the experiment. Basically, I want to get people into that fervor where they're like, oh, speaking in demons and tongues and everything, and then immediately basically snap my fingers and have everyone else in the room stop because they're in on the performance and stop doing the thing and say to the person, like, are you okay? What's going on right now? Because all of us are faking it. What's going on? Why are you acting like a demon? Do you believe you're a demon? What's going on? People get so into the moment of, like, everyone's, like, praising and doing things with the exorcisms and the demon stuff. What do you do when you just shut that off right in the middle and make them go, oh God, what am I doing? You know what I mean? I'm curious. I don't know what that reaction would be.
Made tonight. We have chosen to ask why. Via satellite, we'll be asking the youngest person on Oklahoma's death row, just 17 when he killed in the name of Satan, why he murdered his own parents. And to Southern California, where we will ask the parents of children in the notorious McMartin preschool why they claim their kids were satanically abused.
Oh yeah, the McMartin one that was mentioned in the last one where it was a big hoax.
And to London, where rock star Ozzy Osbourne will tell us why he feels he and heavy metal music are getting a bum rap. And to the state penitentiary in Angola, Louisiana, to ask convicted killer Charles Gervais why he thought the devil would award him 10,000 souls.
The Investigative News Group presents the Geraldo Rivera Special.
Whether a Satan exists is a matter of belief, but we are certain that Satanism exists. To some, it's a religion. To others, it's the practice of evil in the devil's name. It exists, and it's flourishing. Members of our studio audience tonight will attest to that. They are friends and foes of Satanism, devil worshippers and law enforcers, experts and victims. They'll help us understand this force that exalts evil and darkness. We'll be asking why. Why does it exist? And why does it appeal to so many vulnerable people, especially the young? Now, the very young and the impressionable should definitely not be watching this program tonight. This is not a Halloween fable. This is a real-life horror story, and it will give small children bad dreams. As for teenagers and their parents, we hope you are watching, because it's teenagers who are most likely to fall under the spell of this jumble of dark, violent emotions called Satanism, and in some cases, to be driven into committing terrible deeds. Being into heavy metal doesn't necessarily mean your kid's also into Satanism, and most of these fans are not. But there is an undeniable connection between obsession with the really hard stuff and the occult.
Once again, I want to go back in time and show these people, like, I don't even know, like, I don't know, I just find it so funny that they're talking about, like, Metallica, and they're like, this is the hardest shit that'll ever be.
This stone pony from Kansas City is named Spike.
The upside down cross is a symbol of Satan.
Oh, that's a bad tattoo.
Rock and roll symbol. And most acid rock is involved with Satanism.
Let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast.
A heavy metal freak from Louisiana. Joe got himself into self-mutilation in Satan's name.
We'd cut our arms and let the blood drip into a cup, and we'd pass it around and drink from the cup from each
That's a good way to get hepatitis.
other's blood.
Kim from Colorado also practiced the gruesome ritual.
Violence with blood. We like to see blood, and we used to eat blood and stuff like that.
Drinking blood as entertainment is apparently a staple in the acts of heavy metalists like Wasp.
My life became centered not only around the marijuana I was smoking and the booze I was drinking, but it became centered around Satan.
Although Satanism is more obvious in the lyrics of groups like Megadeth, Slayer, Venom, and Iron Maiden. In St. Petersburg, Florida recently, Satanic Symbols filled the air.
I'm not really a big fan of metal music, but weirdly I am a big fan of metal album cover art aesthetic. I don't know why. Just an awesome look. But I don't really like the music.
At this concert by Danish-born King Diamond.
How much can you influence kids? I think people are too clever to be influenced by watching a band or listening to an album to go out and do the same. Because if they were that easy to influence, watching the news.
I like that they're trying to demonize a genre of music that is basically allocated as dad rock these days. Like, we're talking about Kiss right now.
The real thing, and everybody knows that, right into your living room. Personally, I am a Satanist, a practicing Satanist, but we never try to preach that religion to anybody.
Bull. An avowed Satanist, Diamond...
Bull! Just you interviewed a guy and then you're like, fuck you!
Diamond's protest that he's not preaching is belied by lyrics laced with references to death, graves, and evil. Of course, to some, it's just rock and roll rebellion.
Satan has nothing to do with this kind of a concert. It's just an outlet to have a good time.
Parents think, oh, Satanism, their kids. It's killing their kids. It's not killing their kids. The parents are screwing up in the beginning. We're the next generation. And you
A lot of these people are grandparents now.
Whatever the connection, there is no doubt that teenage satanic activity in this country is increasing dramatically. In Bayou Country,
I think we have a satanic
Louisiana,
panicker in chat on YouTube. Why is it always YouTube? It's always YouTube chat.
Been grave robbing.
So what do they take out of these tombs? They take out the bones, okay, especially on the older type grave sites as this, because our understanding is that the right little finger has something to do with their culture, and they make a necklace out of them, and they wear them.
A necklace out of the right knuckle?
The right knuckle.
And the graffiti is no longer John Loves Mary.
Death chamber, the point of no return, this says. As you walk into the main vault, it's the devil's pentagram, 666, the sign of the devil.
I'm horrified at this graffiti!
We're here a bloody skull and crossbones.
In Maine, a dozen churches were defaced with satanic symbols. In California, New Jersey, Alabama, and elsewhere, police have found inverted crosses and the remains of...
You fucking idiot, an inverted cross
In New Jersey, Alabama, and elsewhere, police have found inverted crosses and the remains of mutilated animals.
Fun fact, inverted crosses are also a sign in Catholicism at St. Peter's Cross.
But by far the most frightening of all are the reports of teenagers killing other kids in Satan's name. Item, Douglas County, Georgia.
I'm sorry for you, young lady, and I sentence you to a term of life in prison. I'm sorry for you, and I wish you good luck. Remove her from the courtroom, Mr. Sheriff.
17-year-old Melissa Ernest and two other teenage members of her coven admitted drinking her 15-year-old victim's blood, then dancing around her still warm body. Now listen to this report from a small town in Maine.
Yesterday's conviction of Scott Waterhouse for the murder of 12-year-old Giselle Cody may finally bring an end to talk of a satanic cult in the town.
Item, Long Island, New York. Police arrest 17-year-old Ricky Casso for the ritual murder of 15-year-old Gary Lowers. Casso gouged out his victim's eyes.
As we've seen, the level of violence in these crimes committed in Satan's name is often appalling and savage, brutal enough to shock even hardened police officers. Detective Paul Hart thought he had seen everything. Then this veteran New Jersey officer saw how a suburban teenager murdered and mutilated his own mother. I believe
we all know kids in the suburbs are incapable of being sociopaths. Fenekagami says, remember kids, if you want to get back at your parents, don't do human sacrifice. Instead, be gay, trans, or a furry. Then you get to watch them suffer for the rest of their lives, and you get to be happy.
That evil will once again rise and conquer
yeah,
the love of God.
Geraldo sucks.
This pact is to your approval. Signed below.
Just barely 14 years old, Tommy Sullivan had written this contract with the devil before he butchered his mother with his Boy Scout knife. The murder took place in the basement of the Sullivan family home.
I guess he was prepared.
As we came down here, we found Mrs. Sullivan laying on the floor just about in this area here.
Describe the condition of the body.
It appeared that her throat had been cut and a good portion of her face had literally been slashed away. Tommy died as brutally as his mother did, but at his own hands.
What did Tommy then manage to do to himself? What wounds did he inflict on himself to kill himself?
His first self-inflicted wounds were a series of wounds to his wrists. 3, if I remember correctly, deep enough to actually sever the arteries and the tendons in his arm, enough to snap back his wrist.
Thanks for the link, MH Dark Beast. That does look good. I am putting together some holiday programming for this year, so I will end up using that. Psychotropic Thunder, thanks for a 4-month streak.
And after doing that, he literally slit his throat from ear to ear with this 3.5-inch knife from the windpipe all the way back to the spinal column, and to the point of almost taking his head off.
That sounds like pretty severe mental issues if you're capable of slicing your own neck like that.
Unable to live with the gruesome memories in their family, Tommy's father and younger brother have moved out of state.
Do you think you can ever find it in your heart to forgive your son?
I don't know. I loved him dearly. But he also took my wife who I loved.
How could this happen here? To a nice boy from a good Catholic school and a fine middle-class family.
Fuck off! This is so exploitative. It has nothing to do with those things.
Sure, he was obsessed by the symbols. This is what his room looked like on the night of the murder and suicide. But heavy metal is not answer enough.
You're a veteran of Vietnam. Had you ever seen anything that brutal?
Oh yeah, let's bring up Vietnam!
Certainly in an area like this, in a town like this, in a neighborhood like this, you don't expect to see that type of violence. And it was brutal. It was brutal.
This attitude is bewildering to me. Well, I thought where I lived was immune from the human condition. What are you talking about? Are you delusional?
And
all I'm learning is that suburbs are full of profoundly delusional people who don't know how the world works.
There's few of us that will forget that.
Nor do you forget these drawings Tommy made just before he killed himself. But you continue to search for the reasons. What made Tommy? What made the others do it?
What's going on in this country? Our big question tonight is why. This is Detective Sergeant Paul Hart. Yes, stand up, Paul. He's the man, the cop who investigated the Tommy Sullivan tragedy. I've never heard of wounds that ferocious, and the pictures are even more appalling. Pictures that we did not show here. Do you think, you're not a theologian, you're a cop, do you think that Tommy was possessed?
What is that fucking question?
I think that possession is a state of mind, and it would have been a hell of an interview with Tommy had we located him. Certainly, like I had said before...
It's not a state of mind. It's not. You can absolutely say he was mentally ill, which it appears he is, but to try and link this in any way to some sort of supernatural thing is so irresponsible.
His death was as violent as his mother's.
Father LeBar, you investigate these cases for the Catholic Church. Is it the Church's position that demonic possession is possible?
It certainly is. There have been many cases down through the centuries, many in our own decade, for example, of where the devil has actually possessed people and caused them to do many strange things.
I'm gonna go with no. I'm gonna go with the Catholic priest is wrong. There aren't demons possessing people. I understand where he's coming from. He's a Catholic priest. But no, that's not true.
So you believe it's possible?
I believe not only is it possible, it is a reality in some very select amount of cases.
Let's go to London for a quick exchange with Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy, I'm glad you're on the program. I'll interview you in greater detail in a couple of minutes. The one thing I have
just leaving him waiting there.
Ask you now, though, is, of course, the vast majority of your fans and the fans of heavy metal music are not Satanists. But there is no doubt, at least not in our reporting, that that heavy metal music plays a role. Every single kid whose case we know about, who committed a violent act in Satan's name was also into heavy metal music.
Because they're into a specific aesthetic that resonates with them over their outsider, feel like they aren't a part of things status. It becomes easy to gravitate towards these, again, elements of pop culture that are considered by the mainstream to be out there, extremist, avant-garde, because they already feel like they aren't a part of society as a whole in the way that other people might. Fennikagami says, the thing they should be asking is, why does this seem to be mostly happening in the suburbs? What's different about the suburbs that makes this happen more than in the cities? But they can't do that, because then it would be a systemic problem on them. And that can't be the case.
What's your response to that?
Because they're in the suburbs, where everyone is always safe, and again, mental illness and the realities of life can't reach you.
Well, I don't really know. All I do is make music, you know. I don't sit down and purposely plan to freak everybody out. I mean, I always have played heavy metal music. I suppose when I was younger and I started writing songs, my world was kind of dark and dingy, you know. I came from a working class...
Australia is very Aussie, funny.
Family who had nothing, no dough, no prospects of ever having much money. And so that's how I saw the world as a child. And so, well, not all my songs are about Satanism.
Of course.
In fact, if you...
Stand by, Ozzy, because I want to get to Sean Sellers, who's the youngest kid ever to go on death row in Oklahoma. Sean is a kid who murdered his mother, murdered his stepfather, murdered a convenience store clerk. What did Satanism have to do with it, Sean? What did Satan, do you feel, have to do with, first, your murder of that convenience store clerk?
Wait, they're having Ozzy Osbourne do a live chat with a guy on death row? Okay, that's weird.
Satanism was, well, the murder was because it was a, how do I say this so that you can understand it? It was a sacrifice to prove allegiance to Satan, to prove my hatred towards society and everything.
Well, hatred towards society is one thing, Sean, but how does Satan make you commit murder?
Yeah, but hold on, Sean, in that particular situation, Sean Sellers...
This is Tom Wedge, an expert in Satanism, who is with Sean in the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. Yeah,
right.
Go ahead. Quick.
Now I'm getting the vibe that this guy is using the kid on death row in order to push his narrative about Satanism. Oh boy. Zoom out to show a guy right next to him. Profane Priestess says, I spent a lot of time exploring non-traditional spirituality as my Christian deconversion, and who continues to do so as part of my education. This satanic panic stuff is silly to me. I've known a fair few Satanists in my time. None of them were theists. The Satanists I've known have all been humanists, but edgy and into theater.
Sean had broken every one of the 10 Commandments except thou shalt not commit murder. And after he worshiped before the altar and
he committed adultery
and asked for power from Satan, he went out to do this. Technically, it was a human sacrifice.
Okay, I got to move on. You guys stand by. We'll get back to you. Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get...
So funny that they had the kid talk for a little bit, and they're like, hold on, he's not been coached well enough. Let's go to the guy who's been coaching him.
And to get into the mind of another all-American boy who came under the influence of Satanism and took part in a crime without passion or motive. He and his pals beat another classmate to death. We'll be right back. As you may have heard, we faced a much publicized dilemma in putting this program together. Many of the things...
There was nothing in Al Capone's fault, but it wasn't Geraldo's fault.
About Satanism are offensive, and putting on an offensive television show was not our aim, so the most gruesome scenes have been left out. Now, what we've kept is strong. We think it's strong enough to get across an effective warning. Satanism can be cause for concern. Its roots are anywhere. Its roots are even in the very heartland of this country. Take a look.
Carl Junction, Missouri, a town of about 4,000 souls in the heart of the Bible Belt, where people believe in God and the devil.
Okay, I need to play this real quick. For those that don't know about Geraldo Rivera, he was a sensationalist piece of shit, basically. A big special he did was he got the right to open Al Capone's vault. Al Capone, the famous Prohibition-era gangster. He had a vault, and Geraldo was like, we're gonna open his vault. It hasn't been opened since he was arrested. No one knows what's inside of it. So we did this whole, like, big live, I almost called it a live stream. You know, the live TV version of that, and it was all building up to them opening the vault, and here's what happened.
The idea was to open the vault on live international television.
I'm Geraldo Rivera, and you're about to witness a live television event. A massive concrete vault has been discovered. Some think it belonged to none other than the notorious Al Capone. Well, tonight, for the first time, that vault is going to be open live.
Well, what happened that night 20 years ago made pop cultural history and made me the punchline of a million jokes, some of which are still being told. Today, for the first time since it aired in April 1986, here's a portion of the secrets of Al Capone's vault.
Now, what, if anything, that vault contains, we don't know. This is an adventure you and I are going to be taking together.
But when all was said and done, all I'd found was an old stop sign and a couple of empty gin bottles.
It seems, at least up to now, that we've struck out with the vault. I'm disappointed about that, as I'm sure you are.
Then I swallowed my pride and kept my word.
I promised all the critics that if we didn't find anything, I'd sing a song. So, Chicago, that Hovland town. All right, I'm going. I'll see you.
I was humiliated and
what a sore loser.
Deeply embarrassed. Then the next morning, the ratings started coming in. And the telephone in my hotel room where I was hiding out would not stop ringing. The mystery of Al Capone's vaults was, and still is, the highest-rated syndicated special in the history of television.
He's such a blowhard. Like, he can't even just take the L respectably. He has to be like, yeah, I didn't find anything, but it was the highest-rated live special. Feels like a narcissist. Continuing with Profane Priestess's part 2, says, some Luciferians are theists, but they believe not in Lucifer as a god of evil, rather he's a god of freedom and enlightenment. They're often pseudo-libertarians, applying Lucifer's rebellion against Jehovah as an influence in their daily lives. I'm not saying worshipping of the Christian Lucifer doesn't exist, but they're vanishingly rare.
Periodically, satanic graffiti and some mutilated animals turn up, causing alarmists to cry that satanic cults are operating in the area. Those charges were routinely discounted, until a group of students from this high school shocked the entire nation. Late one night last December, 4 teenagers who had been dabbling in Satanism carried baseball bats, a cat, and a length of rope to an isolated spot near their small town here in Missouri. By the time the night was over, the cat had been mutilated and one of the boys beaten to death by the other 3, who then dumped his body in a well. One of the kids who did it, Pete Rowland, is now serving life sentence without parole here at this maximum security facility in Fulton, Missouri. The other 2 boys, his classmates,
were also sentenced to life.
Have you ever been in Here in the first interview since the murder, Pete Rowland talks about the satanic elements of the crime.
What was it about Satanism that attracted you?
Power. Just, you know, with power comes money, comes girls, just the feeling of people looking up to you, popularity.
Deep Lord says this is literally just RFK stuff, like all of this? What do you mean?
You're a good-looking guy, smart.
Like brainworm?
You have those things anyway?
It just seemed easier through the devil.
The devil was the spur for this murder, which Pete confessed on this never-before-seen police videotape.
Yes.
Go ahead and show us what you did.
Okay. And I got over right through here, and I grabbed the over hand, and I pulled him through to right here. So the victim, he was still moaning a little bit and going, like kind of like that.
About this bad here, Pete.
Okay, this is the bat that I threw. This is the third bat.
Quite a bit of blood and hair on this thing. You can see a lot of hair on the end of it.
Who all hit him? Me, myself, Jim Hardy, and Ron Clement. It basically started out like with the killing of animals. Then there's always the heavy metal music, and drugs don't help. Sometimes I didn't feel like I was the master of my own body. Like something else kind of took over with inside of my mind.
What took over?
Just the violence, the devil, lust and greed for drugs, for money.
Pete gradually withdrew from family life. That is probably one of the
feel like lust caused you to commit murder.
main things I noticed. He even got to where he avoided eating meals with us. He listened to the music, heavy metal music.
Why does it matter? The music had nothing to do with... Again, millions and millions of fans listen to Ozzy Osbourne, who is now dad rock, for decades, and they're fine. A few people doing things that are unrelated doesn't mean the music is to blame. It's like the people who say, like, back in the early 2000s at school shootings, trying to blame video games, and they're like, the school shooter was found with copies of the video game, I don't know, it doesn't matter what it is, Mortal Kombat, or Doom, whatever it happens to be. Like, every kid has video games. Same thing.
Every opportunity.
Another example of the link between heavy metal and
GTA, another good example.
Teenage satanic crime.
Describe what this music did to you.
It was kind of like in the way of when we killed animals, it was just like, it would just things would go through my mind, and I could see the thoughts, I could see me hurting someone, you know, torturing people, and just along with the words too. Some of it was just all hail Satan and ripping apart, severing flesh, gouging eyes, things like that, you know. And after you listen to this, you know, 3 or 4 hours a day, every day for, you know, years or months, and it can get to you.
Why did you choose this guy as your victim? Why Steve?
Just because he was a human. Just because we could deceive him easy.
The boy deceived was 19-year-old Stephen Newberry, who then took the first of some 70 blows as his classmates swung their baseball bats.
I kind of looked down and I heard a pop, and I knew what it was. And I looked up, and Steve's eyes were real big, you know.
A Jack Thompson stream would be fun, watching a bunch of his old interviews. Pretty sure he got disbarred, which is great. For those that don't remember, Jack Thompson was a lawyer who was, like, really big on grifting the video games cause violence thing. Huge asshole. Again, like I said, he ended up getting his law license revoked, I think.
And he just said, you know, why me? Why me?
Phyllis Filler says, Brutus and other senators were found to have had copies of Latin literature whose contents undoubtedly convinced them to betray their Caesar.
He just looked like he was really sad, and someone said, because it's fun, Steve. And then we just all just like
Satan.
Vultures, you know. I mean, we just went in. It happened, you know.
You hit him?
Yes.
In the head?
Yes.
How many times?
A lot.
Even with the filter, I don't want to see that.
And I look at my hands sometimes.
I'm gonna move
and
the camera
think,
away
you know,
till they're done.
Are these the hands that killed him? And I mean, I know they are, but it just doesn't seem like it, you know. I don't want, you know, I would never want to kill anybody again. I mean, right after we did what we did, I felt real empty inside. I felt like I could never love again, you know. I felt like a zombie.
The devil double-crossed you?
Yes. It just leads to your own destruction.
How do you know that now?
Look where I'm at, you know, look at my sentence. I mean, I'm in jail with life without parole.
I feel very guilty that I didn't pay attention, that I didn't. There were some things that I saw that I feel like I should have paid attention to. I saw the album covers, and they're hideous. I just assumed that if they sell it, it's got to be okay.
Again, I don't think that's a hideous cover. I think that's a cool cover.
Satanic Symbols on his bookwork, and I'd spoken to him about it. Didn't mean anything.
Swastika's not cool.
I assumed it was a passing phase. I had my things when I was that age. I assumed that he had his. I assumed wrong. And I would advise anybody, if they see anything like that, to look into it. Don't ignore it.
Ma'am, I'm sorry that your kid did terrible things. He didn't do terrible things because of the music and stuff.
It doesn't pass. It's just something I'll never get over, ever.
Parents, heed the advice of Pete Rowland's mom. Pay attention. Satanism is
I like that they just keep Ozzy back there, just like chilling. He just has to listen to this bullshit.
a harmless fad or a passing phase in some of these kids' lives. Ozzy?
Yeah?
I know that your lyrics are less excessive than groups like Slayer or Venom or Iron Maiden or some of the others, but still.
Iron Maiden? Radical?
For some reason, maybe it's because you've been around for so long, I see tattoos of your name on some of these, teenage devil worshippers' arms. Wherever I see devil graffiti and satanic graffiti, I see your name also. Do you feel a sense of responsibility, Oz?
The only responsibility I feel is the fact that I'm a true musician of what...
Ozzy shouldn't have come on and done this. There's no fair response to the things that are being levied against him, because it's not even, like, the actual questions are bad enough, but he's also making implications that are just impossible to, like, defend against. It's so absurd. Poor Ozzy.
What I play... I don't want to make anybody start doing all this devil worship crap, because that's not my intention, although I have sang on a few songs about the devil. You know, that's about it, you know. I don't want anyone to harm themselves.
What about the issue of responsibility? What about the whole thing about guilt? Do you feel responsible?
I don't feel guilty. I feel kind of persecuted by everybody, because I'm not a bad guy. My intentions are not to harm anyone. In fact, it's directly the opposite. Like when people come to my concerts, I want them to have a good, fun evening out, you know. And it seems to me that a lot of people judge the book by the cover more so they write things about me, or they don't even know what they're talking about, you know.
Well, there are lots of people out there, lots of people here in our studio audience who have a very different point of view. We'll get...
See what I mean? He's not even saying, I'm directly disagreeing with you, because you could retort to that. He's saying, there's a lot of people in this audience who disagree. You know what I mean? It's a general, like, vibe of, well, everyone here hates you and you're wrong. Like, you can't even respond to it. It's not in good faith. P-Meal, thanks for the $5 tip, says, hey, Hannah, what's the name of the doc you were in again? Gonna check it out when I can. I forget the specific name, but it's on a channel of a guy named James Janney. James, J-A-N-I. James Janney. It'll be the first two that come up. They were the most recent videos. I'm in the second video more than the first one, but I'm in the first one a little bit.
To them, coming up next, a look into the dark soul of Satanism. Stay with us. Once again, a warning about some tough language and descriptions in a report that we'll have for you in just a moment. Let me introduce you first, though, to Zena LaVey. Her father, Anton LaVey, is, I guess, the founding father of Satanism in this country. He founding it, about 25 years ago, Zena?
Yeah, approximately 25 years.
Can you tell...
She gets accused by modern-day conspiracy theorists of being Taylor Swift's real mom, or that Taylor Swift is a clone of this woman, who is the daughter of Anton LaVey. So in case you're like, oh, she kind of looks familiar, she comes up on Tinfoil Tuesday sometimes. Usually in relation, again, to being accused of Taylor Swift being her clone.
Tell us with any certainty how widespread the religion of Satanism is in this country or around the world.
Well, the religion is worldwide. We have members just throughout...
I think she's a Buddhist now, by the way. think she renounced this stuff and became a Buddhist.
Out the world, and it's a legitimate religion. It's perfectly within the.
Who's the guy? Geraldo?
It's
Geraldo Rivera, famous. I don't want to call him a journalist. Famous entertainer piece of shit from the 80s and 90s.
But how many people? Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds of thousands, I can't say. Thousands, easily.
What is it, Dr. Aquino? Dr. Aquino, the high priest of the Church of Set?
Temple of Set.
Temple of Set, also a colonel?
Okay, I'm good.
Interestingly enough, in the United States Army? What is it, this Satanism?
I think that there is some confusion tonight because this same...
Chat, it appears we've entered the neutral zone. Yellow alert.
same term means something different to Satanists than it does to Christians in the United States. By our own standards, the people who you've shown in these film clips would not be Satanists, either present or in the past. Rather, they would be the failures of a conventional religion.
I appreciate your opinion. What is it, sir, then? What is Satanism?
Well, originally the Church of Satan, when it was founded, was composed not of people with a hatred for Christianity, but of people who, by and large, were agnostics and atheists, because they felt that the institutions which had arisen around Christianity had failed in their moral commitment. So Satanism itself became an emphasis on rational self-interest and on taking responsibility for your own intellectual and ethical
I like
decisions.
that this guy's the most articulate on the show so far.
Rational self-interest, you call it?
Yes.
Okay, one thing we do know that Satanism has in common with other religions is the belief that the devil can inhabit your body. Remember the movie Exorcist, the film? It dealt with ridding the body of Satan.
Yeah, that was a movie that didn't really happen. Like, I like, what's his name? Peter Blatty, as much as the next gal, as much as the next cinephile. Well, that's just a movie. Also, I prefer the second one because of all the locusts.
In a ritual called exorcism.
I need to make something clear that was a joke. I do not like The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, more than the first Exorcist film. That was a joke.
As we discovered in the heart of the Haitian section of Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, are we gonna get racist with it? We're gonna get real racist now?
Exorcism is more than just a scene in a movie. It's a common aspect of some people's religious beliefs. Operating out of the back room of this religious curio shop, a voodoo priest regularly performs exorcisms. This one on a woman whose persistent stomach pains were thought to be caused by the devil inside her.
I know you've been possessed by the devil for so many years. He been bother you. But today you come to me, and I'm going to let him know he cannot bother you again.
With the help of several assistants, and accompanied by throbbing traditional music.
Oh my god, are they gonna compare, like, the ritualistic use of something like chicken in voodoo, and they're gonna call it are they gonna call it Satanism because potential animal sacrifice? Oh god.
Priest's incantations built to a crescendo. Then, in a moment of almost sexual release, the devil
of almost sexual release. Give me a fucking break.
Purged from the patient.
The chicken is dead. The chicken take all the malady, all the sickness away from you.
Like, I don't think that their beliefs are true either, but don't be like this about it. Animal sacrifice has been a part of tons of religions, historically and in contemporary, like, places in the world still. The idea that this is satanic pisses me off. Like, what hypocrites? I bet Geraldo's fine eating chicken, but these people using it in a religious ceremony all of a sudden, oh, I care very deeply about the chicken.
Every way. Southern California is a very long way from the heart of Brooklyn. But at the church of a preacher named Roy Masters, exorcisms of the devil appear just as sincere, far out, and dramatic.
Lost your power. You get out of here.
With a background in show business rather than theology, Masters claims the members of his congregation react so profoundly to the laying on of the cross.
I know chickens were first domesticated for cockfighting. Is that true? If so, cockfighting sucks, but chicken is delicious, so that's nice.
feel and fear themselves possessed by the devil.
Come out.
No, I won't let her go. No.
Devil worship is as old as religion itself. It's the grim old...
It is not. It is not. That even implies that, like, Christianity, or even if you're talking about Judaism, like, you're acting as though it's, like, the oldest religion. It's not.
The flip side.
The concept of Satan is not an ancient concept.
Of life. Evil over good. Dark over light. Satan over God himself.
Come forth and bestow these blessings of hell upon us.
Forced underground by the religious hysteria of the Middle Ages, Satanism was resurrected. First by an Englishman named Aleister Crowley in the early 20th century. It entered its modern era in this country just about 25 years ago, under the theatrical guidance of Anton LaVey, California-based high priest of present-day devil worship. LaVey founded the Church of Satan. Now, despite its preachings of evil and hate, the church and its offshoots are constitutionally protected religions.
I believe that hate is necessary in a controlled way just as much as love is necessary.
LaVey penned the best-selling Satanic Bible. It's the
I have that somewhere. I don't know where it is. I've never read it. Someone sent me a copy.
handbook of devil worshippers everywhere. And for a time, he was considered chic enough to attract the attention of Hollywood. After working together on a film, LaVey made Sammy Davis Jr. an honorary member, while the late Jane Mansfield was for a time among LaVey's most passionate followers.
Most of the people that are in my group are professional people, they're business people, they're people that are from very responsible walks of life.
Contemporary Satanism relies heavily on bizarre and sometimes bloody ceremonies.
One of the ugliest, yet apparently most common rituals in devil worship is the sacrifice of animals, often involving the removal of organs and the draining of their blood in elaborate ceremonies. Well, a series of cattle mutilations on this Louisiana farm has sent a shiver of fear through this entire community. Show me the evidence.
Andrew, thanks for subscribing on YouTube.
Oh, this hole right here? And the tail, they cut the tail off.
By the way, I'm really glad I did the James Janney thing. I thought it turned out great. But also, I'm pretty excited because I've gotten over 200 subscribers on YouTube over the past couple days. So that's really nice. Thanks to everyone who's new and found me through the James Janney stuff. I hope you enjoy and stick around. I do content all the time. So.
The same thing with the ears.
They cut the ears off.
Right.
So you two have no doubt but that your animals were used in some kind of ritual.
Right. Yes. All the blood was gone out of them, too. Every one of them, the blood was drained. No blood, no insides, eyes pulled out, everything. I'm begging for something to be done. I'm scared.
In response to the animal mutilations and other mysterious and unsolved crimes in this area, the local fundamentalist church held an extraordinary service.
Just who I call when I'm in trouble, the fundamentalist church.
A lot of questions about, are there any witchcraft, occultism, Satan worshipers in the area? And the answer is obviously yes.
We're going to pass around the offering plate, and if you want us to help fight this satanic menace, we suggest you give generously.
The only way to deal with Satan, which is spirit, is by way of spirit.
The preacher asked his flock to protect themselves with their faith, but some chose a more down-to-earth method.
Brother Blunt, I believe in the Lord, and I believe in you. But I'm still going to carry my gun because I'm scared.
In our investigation,
reminds me of the line in the one song about atomic proliferation, and he's like, about Israel getting nuclear weapons, was like, the Lord's our shepherd, says the psalm, but just in case, we better get a bomb. The Lord is with us, but also, I really should get a gun. Ugh.
We discovered that some of Satan's soldiers are also high-ranking officers in the United States military. Here at San Francisco's Presidio Army Base, for example, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino led a double life as a satanic high priest. The colonel's cult is listed in the San Francisco telephone book, and his phone answering machine boasts of his affiliation.
Is the phone book satanic?
Temple of Set. The temple is the only international satanic religious institution fully recognized by the United States government.
Indeed, the Army does officially recognize Satanism as a legitimate religion and supplies chaplains with this guide for ministering to the satanic soldier. Yet unofficially, some charge that Army bases have become sanctuaries for devil worshippers, Just last month, under a full moon, I took a midnight tour of the Presidio grounds with police investigator Ed Abanovsky.
Are you saying that there was a satanic cult active right here on the Army base?
Yes, we believe so. There's evidence to substantiate that. They had satanic rituals going on. There's an altar in there, and all of the graffiti on the wall would indicate that.
Let's see if I can see it.
Just immediately goes
How'd you
over
find
it.
this place?
This is a fortification during World War II. During World War II, where they had gun batteries.
I can see a pentagram painted on the wall. I can see the words Prince of Darkness. On this wall, I see several inverted crosses and other obvious...
It's kids coming and hanging out and getting high and maybe making out and doing graffiti. It's not that deep.
Satanic ritualistic paintings or symbols. Joseph, we've agreed to conceal your identity, but you are an officer in the United States Army.
That's correct.
And you were an officer in the United States Army during the time you were a member of this satanic organization.
Yes.
Okay.
Did the authorities at the Presidio know that a satanic organization was active on their base during the time that you were a member?
They were very much aware of it, yes.
Wouldn't that...
Yeah, it's illegal to... You can't just tell people they can't join the army because of their religious belief. What are you doing?
Base Commander Colonel Rafferty says that today, at least,
I know of no satanic activities whatsoever in this area.
Satanism may be a
I like how he just gets like the shortest snippets from people to cherry pick.
constitutionally protected religion. But similar to another recent case at the United States Military Academy at West Point, here charges surface connecting ritual child abuse at the Presidio Daycare Center to the devil cult.
It was here, parents and others allege, that as many as 60 young children were ritualistically abused by soldiers of Satan. What actually was done to the kids?
Oral copulation, sodomy, defecation. They were urinated on.
The former chief juvenile investigator at the Presidio, Ed Abanovsky, is here. He's now a deputy sheriff in Santa Clara County. Colonel Aquino, we note, sir, for the record, that you were originally implicated in the dreadful charges of child abuse. We note also that no charges were ever brought against you, and presumably you have been cleared. Would you like to comment on why those charges were brought against you?
Well, the entire time that the so-called child molestation scandal was occurring at the Presidio, the time period when these terrible events were supposedly taking place, I was assigned to the National Defense University in Washington, D.C., and my wife was out there living with me.
But is it not a fact that a 3-and-a-half-year-old girl identified you as the alleged perpetrator of molestation?
No, as a matter of fact, it is not the case. An accusation was made by her stepfather, who was an Army chaplain, speaking on behalf of this child. In her original interview with the FBI, she denied ever being molested.
Well, I've seen the... you are innocent until proven guilty. You were never charged in this case. I don't want to belabor the point. I have seen, however, the affidavits for the search warrant of your home, and they indicate the child is speaking to the authorities, not her father.
This was after she had been subjected to therapy.
Let's say you are innocent of that. You are no longer at the Presidio. You are now in St. Louis, but you are still a serving officer or colonel in the United States Army. Do you feel it is inconsistent with a high-ranking officer pledged, sworn, to uphold the Constitution of the United States that you are also a practicing Satanist?
Fucking what? This is such a hit job! This poor guy! Angel, thanks for a $10 super chat, says, "Hi Hannah, you're so cute. Never ever get to do Sobsit streams, so here I am. Love your content. Don't ever stop. I'll do my best." And thank you very much for the support.
Not in the least. The Army has known of my religion for the last 20 years.
M. Scheffler with 50 bits says, "Have bits." Thank you.
There's never been a problem with it, any more than there's a problem with other members of minority religions.
But let me read from the Satanic Bible. Quote.
Oh my god, Geraldo is such a shit.
No, this is the number one, commandment. Death to the weakling, wealth to the strong. How can you believe this and still uphold the Constitution of the United States? Death to the weakling?
Well, for one thing, what you're looking at there is a highly polemical book that was never meant to be taken literally in all of its commandments.
Written by Zena's father.
Yes, and I'm aware of that, and I'm also saying that members of the Church of Satan understood that much of this book was in the form of a polemic. It was a statement that was dramatically made, but was not intended to be taken literally in all its respects.
So we should not take this book literally?
Correct.
This is Dr. Walter Grote.
He's actually responding pretty well. Again, I think he's the most articulate in this, which is pretty funny. Benigagami says, so question, can we ban any religion that participates in conversion therapy for ritual child abuse? That'd be nice.
Whose daughter was allegedly abused at West Point, the United States Military Academy. You were a captain in the United States Army. Aside from what allegedly happened to your daughter, which I know you allege was part of a satanic cult, and having nothing to do with this man, I state again for the record, what is your feeling, sir, on the fact that a serving officer in the United States Army is also a professed Satanist, a high-ranking person?
Well, I think in this election year, we've heard a lot about values, Geraldo. We've heard a lot that our little children should be saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Mr. Aquino has identified...
Was that a campaign issue in this year, in the fucking 90s, if kids should be saying the Pledge of Allegiance? No.
...himself as an antichrist. He preaches that as the leader of the Temple Set. I don't think I'm misquoting him. I find it inconceivable that we can have candidates talking about one nation under God and having our children say that, yet by the same token, we can have somebody in our army as a colonel leading our troops in battle who are opposed to the very concept of God and whose whole purpose it is to fight against God.
We have to take a break right here.
We're not a theocracy.
Here next, more on the connection between Satanism...
The In God We Trust thing shouldn't be on there anyway. It was put on as a Cold War thing.
And violence, including more charges of the sexual abuse of children. If you have let your kids watch up until now, we urge you, ladies and gentlemen, we are not kidding. Get them away from the TV during our next report. We'll be right back. Once again, parents, we urge you to heed our strongest warning about this next report on the abuse of children, the alleged abuse of children, because if the point of devil worship is evil, what could be more evil than this?
That's the baby right there.
Right here?
Uh-huh. It came out of her already.
What'd they do to the baby?
Then David took it and kept throwing it against the wall, and he killed it, and he took it in the house.
No, you saw that?
Yeah.
These are pictures that can chill a parent's soul. They're a symptom that something dreadful,
little cartoon ghosts,
unspeakable has happened to the child. In this case, it's an 8-year-old boy from Grenada, Mississippi.
They took us in an old caboose, and they had these things they called spades.
Spains?
Yes, spades. They stuck it up my butt.
Who stuck it?
David.
Your dad?
Uh-huh. Ow, did it hurt.
2 doctors have provided medical evidence that from a very early age, this boy has been repeatedly abused. His mother goes further. She claims the sexual abuse happened as part of a satanic ritual.
Do you allege your husband was part of a satanic cult?
I allege that he was the high priest of a satanic cult.
David, the boy's father, has never been formally charged. He's now in hiding. Now, incest is certainly not new, but apparently more and more of it is taking on the dark overtones of Satan.
She talked about...
I would say that incest is darker than Satan. Satan isn't real. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Their heads are fucked.
There being a Satan, and she talked about there being boys that had hurt her.
Listen to what this 5-year-old girl from Orange County, California, told her mother her father did to her.
Daddy was heading the meeting, and he wore a real-life baby foot around his neck. She says they each drank the blood, and then they all hurt
How? Was it preserved in some way? How do you preserve a baby foot?
me. Said, how did they hurt you? She spread her legs and pointed to their crotch and says, right here.
And it gets worse. According to his family, this severely traumatized 10-year-old boy, also from Southern California, was allegedly molested by a trusted neighborhood minister as part of an ongoing satanic cult.
Jimmy talks about having a gun held to his head, about being shown a skeleton, about having to touch the skeleton. He has drawn pictures of a child being sacrificed. He's talked about animal sacrifices. He's disclosed molestation.
In the very places created to care for children, in nurseries and daycare centers across the nation, there are increasing reports of ritual sexual abuse. The children of McMartin are still filled with lurid stories of their awful experience there.
What did they say the devil would do to you?
They said that if we told that the...
This is the big one that turned out to be a hoax and the therapist was implanting false memories in the kids. Well, this is a fucking tragedy.
devil would come and kill our parents, and he said that we wouldn't live to be the age 9.
What were they doing to you?
Molesting me.
What does that mean? What does molesting you mean?
Touching us in places we don't want, and then they would like threaten us like, oh, you don't say a word else we're gonna come to your house and kill everybody except for you, and we're gonna send you to the devil and everything, and they would scare us really much.
No region in this country is beyond the reach of the devil worshippers. Even here in the heartland of America, stories of ritual abuse crop up. The children you're about to meet were born into it. They say their parents forced them to witness bloody rituals, and even they say to participate in ritual murder. Now in the safe haven of a concerned foster family, the children are haunted by their personal nightmares.
My dad was involved in a lot of it. Okay, he's like one of the main guys. He's a leader or something. He made us have sex with him and with other guys, and he's done it with other people. I don't know. I just don't like him.
Tell us what else besides having sex with him and the other guys that made you do.
Kill kids and be there and involved in everything else that happened. And I had to be there. And if I didn't, he threatened, like, you're going to be killed, or people aren't going to believe you if you tell anybody. Or I'll find you, you know. So he said there's no way out and you must do it.
We found out she had been defecated on, that it was smeared all over her body and put in her mouth.
My children have talked about...
Alta Undying says, when my daughter was younger, she once said, I'll reach into the world 3 times, then help myself to the world. And that is really creepy, but it's not satanic.
All of those things and worse. They've talked about having to kill other children.
Well, she told me about the time from as we think was about year and a half, 2 years old, when this was the satanic cult that she was involved with. And she was made to take a gun and put it up to someone's head. It was another child, and pull the trigger.
One of the greatest difficulties in reporting a story like this one is that so much of it sounds so outrageous, too dreadful, too bizarre to be true. Well, here in Nebraska and elsewhere across this nation, concerned citizens have gotten together to defeat that disbelief. This organization is called Believe the Children. Its guiding principle, that the stories these young victims are telling are too widespread.
Pisses me off. This reminds me of, like, modern-day QAnon people who take time and resources away from actual child abuse to go searching for Satanists, people drinking adrenochrome, that kind of shit.
Too consistent not to be true.
The stories are so outrageous, and I am such an honest person, I assumed everybody would believe me. And to this day, I'll get in the middle of a story and I'll think, they're going to think I'm crazy. This sounds crazy. But when you begin to hear this same thing time and again, different stories, but the same horrible underlying things, the same behaviors in the kids, I just want to scream.
I'm a stranger. I come up to you and you tell me this story and I say, I don't believe you. How do you react? What do you do?
I just say, well, that's your right not to believe it. But someday, if you see something or you hear something from somebody else, just remember what you heard from me.
If we were lying, I don't think we would come up with such good lies.
Are you telling us the truth?
If this isn't true, I mean, you can do anything you want with me, but it's true.
Reminder, we know this wasn't true.
So sad. Let's go now to the McMartin preschool parents who have gathered for us in Los Angeles. You recall that case, notorious case. I must state for the record, however, that the charges against most of the defendants have been dropped. Charges are still pending against 2 of them, however. We know that the parents and the children allege child abuse. What is much less known is that they say it was ritual abuse as part of a satanic cult. Whoever is the designated spokesman there, please tell us why you believe this was part of a ritual cult, abuse as part of a satanic cult.
Well, the easiest reason to that question, Geraldo, is the fact when the children started talking, they started talking about robes and candles. They described an Episcopal church. And once they started narrowing that down, you could see that it had to be satanic. It's very important in satanic religion.
The Satanists worship at the Episcopal church?
To have a priest, because they truly do believe in power. The difference only between Catholicism and the Episcopal religion is almost done. They both use wine, they both use bread, and so on. The truth about Satanism is they truly do use blood, and they mix it with urine, and then they also use the real meat, the real flesh. This is what makes Satanism true, and this is what 1,200 molested kids in the city of Manhattan Beach have told the Sheriff's Department, and it's an outrage that we are where we are with this case. And
well, this guy's cracked.
Poor, unprotected kids that have, that's a third of the school system in the city of Manhattan Beach has been molested. We have 8 preschools closed here. This is the child molestation capital of the world. We have more preschools closed in this city than any city this side of Detroit, and I'm not picking on Detroit.
You may have heard of a case here in New York recently where last year, actually, a little 6-year-old girl called Lisa Steinberg was murdered, allegedly by her own step-parents. Well, that trial for the murder of that little girl opened here in New York today. There were some shocking developments. The defense attorney stated that in some way the parents, or at least one of them, was a member of a satanic cult. That just today here in New York. We're joined now by Maury Terry, author of The Ultimate Evil. He has been studying this and other satanic cases. Why do you believe the satanic cult had something to do with this case of Lisa Steinberg?
Well, in the first instance, Geraldo, the police removed demonology books from the Steinberg and Nussbaum apartment in New York. In the second place, I have seen writings done by Hedda Nussbaum, the adoptive mother of Lisa, if you will, in which she had...
Demonology books? So you're saying that because someone has a book on a topic you don't like, they're guilty of a crime?
Admitted that she
this
was
is like Gestapo shit.
Involved with a cult on Long Island that practiced rituals and conducted pornography and were involved in child pornography.
What's this?
Here is Hedda's diary.
This is her own diary?
Hedda's appointment book diary from 1983.
You can expect to be subpoenaed after this, sir.
Yes, and in it you can see here that Hedda was calling deprogrammers, cult deprogrammers, back in the fall of 1983.
Do I have Tank Girl on DVD? No, I think it's coming out on 4K soon, though.
To try to get herself out of this group in Long Island that she had gotten involved with.
You have a sketch drawn by Lisa?
We found in the Steinberg apartment a sketch drawn by Lisa in her own hand. Look at it, coloring book. That's drawn by Lisa Steinberg with the satanic pentagram on it. And with
you also know that's also a star, right? It's a moon and a star also?
The descending crescent moon above it. This, I was told, confirmed by a principal involved in the case, that this was the costume that Lisa wore at the rituals on Long Island. And
look at her little smile in the picture, too.
That the costume scared her. I was also told by a principal involved in the case that they put makeup on Lisa in order to make her look more like an adult, and she hated wearing the makeup. The prosecution is trying to present this case as a simple homicide. What I'm saying to you here now is that there's a lot more evidence in this case. The case goes much deeper than is being portrayed as going, and this evidence that we're revealing here tonight should certainly graphically illustrate that fact.
We'll be right back, folks. Welcome back. The subject is Satanism, and I've been asked repeatedly where the idea to do it came from. Well, it goes back to someone that I interviewed for our special last spring on murder and the frightening fascination verging on adoration that so many people felt for this person. A murderer who would have us believe that he is the incarnation of the devil. Here's Charles Manson.
Okay, I killed everybody since day one. I've murdered them all. I'm God and I've killed everybody.
Or the devil.
Or the devil, yeah, you could use the word devil or demons or whatever you want to call it.
Mostly the devil in your world, eh?
Well, okay, I'll play. There's no game I can't play. There's no game I haven't played.
You are the devil. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be the devil then.
Along with Hitler, cult leader Charles Manson is today's top satanic celebrity.
Yeah,
What? Hitler wasn't a Satanist! What are you talking about? Oh my god, it's just lies all the way fucking down.
I chopped up 9 hogs, and I'm going to chop up some more, you I'm going to kill you as many as I can. I'm going to pile you up to the sky.
Responsible for at least 9 ritual murders, Manson is revered by many modern-day devil worshippers who have adopted his philosophy of the mass extermination of those they consider unfit to live.
We would like to see most of the human race killed off because it is unworthy. It is unworthy of the gift of life.
Nicholas Schreck visited Charlie at San Quentin, keeps a picture of his hero on his apartment wall, and displays a lock of Manson's hair as if it were a sacred relic.
A bloodbath would be a cleansing and a purification of a planet that has been dirtied and degraded for too long.
David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, was also a Satanist.
Yeah, he's not well. A lot of this is basically, look at people with mental illness that we're going to scapegoat with Satanism because they're on the fringes of society, and this sort of thing that is already considered aesthetically on the fringe appeals to them. So instead of investigating why they might be like this and why they're attracted to certain, like, visual aesthetics, certain beliefs, no, clearly it's actually Satan and just Satanism, and they'd be good little choir boys otherwise if it wasn't for Metallica.
The serial killer who terrorized New York.
Yeah, Son of Sam thought a dog was talking to him. Like, that's peak hallucination.
While murdering 5 young women and seriously wounding at least 6 others, Berkowitz was deeply involved in bizarre rituals. So was Henry Lee Lucas, who told police he murdered his girlfriend, his mother, and others across the country, all for a satanic cult.
Why do they want to kill people? They're supposed to be for the reincarnation of the devil.
And when a series of ritualistic rapes and murders hit Southern California, it should have come as no surprise that Richard Ramirez, the alleged Night Stalker, worshipped the devil.
Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
Hail Satan. Hail a belief system that exalts sadistic murder, torture, ritualistic suicide, and racial purity.
This has historically been a sacred day, a day of purification, a day of hell and fury. We mourn not its victims, we honor its victors.
I have never heard of any sort of satanic sect that has anything to do with racial anything.
I would remind those here that murder is the predator's prerogative, and there is no murder without blood.
Berkowitz, Lucas, Ramirez, and Manson are the all-stars in the halls of infamy. But the vast majority of these ritual murders are not the work of the celebrated psychopaths. There are literally hundreds of cases most of us have never heard of. Like this satanic murder in Denver, Colorado, where the victim was handcuffed, chained, and slaughtered. Authorities claim that before he died, the victim participated in drinking his own blood. Or this diabolical example in the city by the bay.
Here in a rundown San Francisco neighborhood far from the tourist attractions and the Golden Gate Bridge, a satanic cult committed crimes of incredible brutality. This is the story of that cult and of its leader, a devil-worshipping murderer named Clifford St. Joseph.
The body was tucked underneath the front wheels on the curb side, wrapped in yellow blankets and tied with guitar string.
What was the condition of the body when you found it?
It had a number of unusual wounds on it. One of the most unusual things was a design carved into the chest of the individual, and once we examined it more closely, it was an upside-down pentagram.
The Devil's Pentagram, the inverted five-pointed star found on the unidentified corpse of St. Joseph's victim, is apparently the principal signature of Satanists. Like a recurring nightmare, it shows up at crime scenes and in their graffiti everywhere. At St. Joseph's apartment, where this grisly murder was committed, I talked to Ed, a fringe member of the cult, and the state's star witness.
What was going on in this apartment?
They asked me if I had ever thought about killing somebody just to watch them die, and they asked me if I would like to join a satanic cult.
Ritual crime was apparently a regular occurrence at this apartment. In this case of torture and murder, the victim has never been identified. For purposes of this case, he was called John Doe number 60.
The first cut would be to the lips. That sealed the person's mouth for all eternity. They also poured wax, I guess, in the eyes, and that sealed their eyes for all eternity.
They did much more to John Doe number 60, but we'll spare you the details. Caught and convicted of murder, kidnapping, and ritual abuse, St. Joseph and another cult member are currently serving long prison sentences. Ed remains free, although he claims only to have been a reluctant participant in the murder of John Doe 60. He does admit bringing a teenager here to be chained up and ritualistically abused.
How can you say you have no guilt when you bring a 17-year-old kid in here, you help shackle him to a radiator, and then participate in his torture and sexual abuse?
Well, I never participated in torture, and no torture was allowed of him.
You were having sex with a kid who's chained up. What are you talking about?
Well, Ricky, first of all, likes that type of sex.
What was going on?
I was gonna say, you can have consensual sex while you're tied up. I promise you. I promise you can do that.
On here is a nightmare.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is a nightmare.
Are there devil worshippers, are there murderers involved in this particular case still at large?
In this particular case, yes, we do know we've had one person identified, other man identified who was present during this particular homicide.
Do you think that this ritualistic stuff is spreading?
It's all over the United States and probably all over the world because it's just something that people are experimenting with now.
Satan means whatever I'm looking at, whatever I want it to mean. It's on my forehead. It's me if I can get up on that highway. It's everything that human beings don't understand. It's all their fears. It's what they're not sure of. You dig what I'm saying? Satan to me would be...
It's not sus knowledge. You all know what I'm into.
God.
At least I would think at this point.
That man is so repugnant. All of these satanic murderers are. The acts that they have been convicted of committing are so horrible that the question could fairly be raised again, why are we doing this broadcast? We are doing it, ladies and gentlemen, because it's our feeling that these cases are too often overlooked, too often underreported. We think that there is a widespread problem here that you deserve, that you need to know about. Joining us right now via satellite, we have another convicted satanic murderer. His name is Charles Gervais.
He is currently serving a life sentence in Angola Penitentiary in Louisiana. Mr. Gervais, why, in Satan's name, did you hammer and strangle to death an innocent person? Did you really think, sir, that they were going to give you 10,000 souls, this devil?
Well, Raldo, I can't talk about my case.
Get to the point about Satanism, Charlie.
Oh.
What are we here for?
Okay. There's a lot of confusion in it, and it's mostly people that really don't understand.
Listen, what about this 10,000 souls, Buster? That's what I want to know about.
Well, that's what I've got into Satanism for.
Why?
Why? Because it possesses power.
Where were you going to get this power? Where were you going to use this power?
In hell.
In hell. You're going to kill a person on Earth to get the power of 10,000 souls in hell? Are you sick?
Nope.
I mean, it does sound like he's probably mentally ill, which, again, is not an excuse for his actions, but, like, why are you yelling at him? It's not going to do anything. Overthought with 100 bits says, why is in Jesus' name did the Knights Templar do the Crusades? Works both ways, Geraldo.
Why aren't you condemned to die?
Why aren't I?
Yeah. Did you use Satanism as a defense?
Yes.
Ted Gunderson, FBI veteran, former head of the regional office in Los Angeles. Is there a network of these satanic murderers in this country, do you allege?
I cannot say that there's a network of satanic murderers. I can say that based on information furnished to me by confidential sources and informants, based on interviews with dozens of survivors from the satanic operations through the years, satanic beliefs, etc., I can say that there is a network of these people across the country who are very active. They have their own rest and relaxation farm. They are in contact with each other. It ties in loosely to the drug operation, ties into motorcycle gangs, and it goes on and on. They have their own people who are specialized in surveillances and photography and in assassinations.
The special assassin Satanists.
This commercial break, we're going to have the anatomy of a satanic crime, showing you why law enforcement has had such a difficult time coming to grips with the strange, shadowy world of satanic crime. Stay with us.
Okay, here's a concept. I'm going to pitch it to you. Assassin's Creed game, but it takes place during the 1980s, and all of the things associated with Satanism are actually parts of assassin stuff, but the Templars are in charge of the media, so they demonize it, so people are afraid of the assassins. And blame the assassins for everything bad that happens. You could turn the Assassin's Creed logo into one of the points on the pentagram. I don't know. An elevator pitch.
One reason we think you haven't heard more about them is that many satanic crimes are simply not recognized as such. Take a look at this report, please. These ritualistic crimes are everywhere, and yet in most communities they are either overlooked or underreported. There's an example going on right now here in Kansas City that tells us why. In this house, in a quiet residential neighborhood, a series of brutally violent, horrible crimes have been committed. And yet the police and prosecutor in this town seem either unable or unwilling to draw the obvious connection between what happened here and Satanism.
The obvious connection that I'm making.
The whole thing was evil.
This 22-year-old, call him Jay, escaped from the House of Horrors wearing only a dog collar. For 4 days, he had been ritualistically tortured by a man named Bob Burdella.
He took a transformer and hooked it to my genitals and stepped back and took pictures while I'm flopping around.
What a sick dog.
It seemed to never end, you know.
After Jay escaped through a window by burning the ropes that bound him to the bed, the police arrested Burdella. When they searched his home, they found over 250 photographs of young men, including Jay, in the process of being tortured, in some cases fatally. Hidden in the walls of the home, they also found a human skull.
He had pictures of guys that he had did things to. Kids tied up.
Ugh.
And with marks on them and things.
Apparently, Burdella would pick up young men, usually hustlers like Joe. Many of them runaways who cluster in Kansas City Strip.
I need $25 so you
For a small amount of money, these kids go anywhere to do anything with anyone. Unfortunately, some went home with Burdella, whose involvement...
Yeah, this is a problem. Sex workers and people in the queer community were big targets, and I assume still are, for those that still exist, serial killers. Serial killers don't tend to be as common these days as they were in the 70s, but yeah, minority groups, both racial and sexual, were big targets for serial killers, unfortunately.
with devil worship was easily apparent. There was, for example, a satanic symbol on the outside wall of his house. His business card seemed straight from hell, and he ran this macabre shop of horrors, possibly stocking it with his own unique hobby. By agreement with the district attorney, Burdella was allowed to plead to 1 count of murder. He received a life sentence, but many people in this community are outraged that the investigation went no further.
Did the police pursue these allegations of satanic involvement?
The police department, it's my understanding, called in some people who knew about witchcraft to talk to them about that. That particular aspect of the case basically went nowhere.
County legislator Carol Cole disagrees.
Why do you think there is no attention being paid to that ritual aspect of this case?
You're in the heart of America, the Bible Belt, and we hate to think that people like that live next door to us. We're turning our backs on, acting like it doesn't happen. We're putting our hands over our eyes as if it didn't occur here. That
it didn't. I mean, like, the crimes happened, but why are you making it a Satan
thing? Just a murder.
This is Detective Lee Orr of the neighboring Kansas City, Kansas Police Department.
Do you believe there is a satanic aspect to these horrible crimes?
Yes, I'm sure there is, yes. We've also had contact with people that have come out of the occult, Satan worship, who have definitely made statements, and who I've interviewed, that state that Mr. Burdella was involved at a higher level than most in the occult.
If these allegations exist, as we merit to you that they do, isn't it reasonable that if you pursued them with vigor, you might find evidence that could pin more of these crimes on this man, that might help solve some of the cases of missing children and missing young adults that you have in this and surrounding communities?
There isn't any question that if there are people who have information about him being involved in witchcraft or Satanism, and that information has not been given to us, that we would love to have it because it would be further leads that we could follow.
Here perhaps...
Follow them where? What would... Oh, he was into weird shit. Okay, what would that tell you? Nothing!
There are some leads for investigators to follow. Item.
This is such a weird red herring to murder.
Reports obtained by us show local authorities have long been aware that devil worshippers were conducting large-scale ceremonies in the Kansas City area. Item. This young man says he was an eyewitness to a sexual orgy at Burdella's house, one with heavy satanic overtones. And item.
What are the satanic overtones of the orgy?
This woman claims she met Burdella through her former husband, a high priest in a local satanic cult.
We were at a meeting in the area, and he was up on the platform in a throne, which symbolizes that that sacrifice at that particular meeting was for him, was done for him.
So he was in an exalted position. He was a VIP.
Yes, he was.
What happened there at that ceremony?
There was a young man killed, a young boy. He was 16 years old.
Did you ever tell the police about any of this?
No, I didn't.
Why?
People don't believe you when you talk about these things. People just do not believe these things happen.
Remember, aside from the torture and sodomy of Jay, who escaped, Burdella has pled guilty to just one murder, a runaway whose skull was found inside his house. A second murder charge is pending. Yet police sources tell us Burdella is suspected in at least 7 homicides. When they excavated his backyard, they found remains of 3 people. Paul Howell believes his missing 19-year-old...
Wild to me, people, like, murder in general, I don't get, obviously. But, like, people who do serial kill and then they bury the bodies on their own property? That just seems like a bad move. I don't know. Angel R with a $5 super chat says, I'm smoking the ganja while opening card packs. Please wish me luck. I wish you all of the luck. I hope you get all of the special cards. I don't know what kind of cards you're opening. Magic or Pokemon or something else, but I hope you get the best ones.
Son was among them.
They found a head right up here, I believe.
A skull?
A skull right up in this area somewhere.
It is one thing for law enforcement to be uninformed. It's quite another.
I want salty snacks so bad right now. I really want chips. Someone digitally send me chips.
Though, for them to refuse to follow known leads.
What, I'd bury it on someone else's? No, I'd probably buy a meat grinder. Or something.
Paul Howell alleges they did exactly that, with the information he provided from his own investigation. For 3 years, he says, he begged them to investigate Burdella's suspected connection with his boy's disappearance.
I dug
Find the nearest hog farm.
to it trash and found different things. At one time, I thought it was dog remains. Later on, after the investigation, the police come in. 3 years later, I found out that this is the way they said Bob disposed of some of the waste of the human remain. He put them in dog food bags and set them out in the trash.
What must it be like to a father to think that his own son was disposed of in pieces in someone's garbage?
What about the bones? It would be a very good meat grinder.
It's just very upsetting, naturally, and want to get even. You want to find everybody that's involved beside Bob and hope that it don't happen to anybody else's kids.
It apparently also happened to Harriet's kid, Bonnie's husband James, who disappeared in 1980.
Do I watch Corpse Grinders? What's Corpse Grinders?
25.
Tina, too, thank you for the raid. Welcome, raiders. Hi, everyone, I'm Hannah. My pronouns are she, her. I am a streamer that looks at the world of weird beliefs people have, strange things, a lot of conspiracy theories that I talk about, why people believe them, debunk them. Today we're taking a look at classic satanic panic stuff from the 80s and 90s. We're getting close to wrapping up for the day. We probably have another 20 minutes or so left in this before we're done. But we do stuff almost every day, so if this sounds fun to you, give me a follow. It would be much appreciated. Always happy to have more people in our community. Make sure you check out Tina 2. Can we get a link for Tina 2 in the chat, please? And thank you, Z, Mnemonic, and Sean... Wait. Sean... The Pop. Thanks for following.
When James first disappeared, even, we begged him to do something to go in Burdella's house to get a search warrant for any reason to try
Oh, Sean O. The Pop. Sorry.
to find
That's my fault.
my son in there.
I still need to get the reading glasses that I haven't gotten yet. I have old ones, but they're not good enough. And they're frankly ugly. So I need to get better reading glasses.
Because it had been told to us that he was possibly chained up in the house in there.
Photographs of James' tortured, apparently murdered body were among those seized by police.
Will you charge Burdella with the murder of James Ferris?
That is not something that I can tell you yes or no.
Will you charge Burdella with the murder of Jerry Howell?
And again, I can't tell you whether
Kind of sounds like ongoing investigations.
or not there will be charges brought against Mr. Burdella
Oh,
or
you're good,
anybody
Sean of the
else
Pop. It's
for
not
the
your fault.
murder of Mr. Howell.
Is it possible that by
I
now...
don't think we ever got a link to Tina's channel. Give me 1 sec so I can get that. Tina. Two. Alright, here's a link. Make sure if you haven't already, you give Tina 2 a follow. There's the link in the chat.
Narrowing the focus of the investigation, people who are involved in these awful acts are still free?
Yes, there's no question about it. You cannot subdue individuals and photograph them, and you're in
All right, thanks, Densetsu.
the photos by yourself. So there is a great implication that somebody
Well,
else...
of course,
that
Tina. Thank you for the raid. Hope you
participating
had a
in
good
this is
stream.
feel it loose, and they're at large in the city, and you're going to be reading about it again in another 12 or 16 months.
I hope she's not right, but stand up. So this
Is
is
that
Detective
Maori?
Sergeant...
No, this is Geraldo Rivera, a big piece of shit from this era. He pretended to be a journalist, but he basically did, nonsense. He did a bunch of sensationalist bullshit. Benegami says, for a lot of serial killers, there's a ritualistic aspect to their killings that's fulfilling some sort of psychological need for them. Burying the body on their property can be as much a part of the fulfillment as it is just stupidity. Remember, most killers assume they won't get caught. Yeah, probably wouldn't do it if they thought they would.
Lee Orr from the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. You saw him in the video piece. This is retired Detective Michael McKee of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Gentlemen, the Kansas City Star is reporting as late as yesterday that the district attorney in your community is still insisting that the Burdella case of serial murders or alleged serial murders is not related to Satanism, is not a ritual crime. You were one of the first cops on the scene. Do you believe that this case is satanically related?
It's my opinion that it is. We recovered a ceremonial robe from the bedroom.
So you found a robe.
We excavated the backyard and dug up the skull in the backyard. It was buried with a jar of feathers and had some burnt wood with it. We also recovered numerous books on the occult from the residence of Mr. Burdell.
Now, whether these cases are not being treated as ritual crimes because of embarrassment to the community or because it's easier
just irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the murder. The murders are the important part, not weird things he did around it because he has mental issues. The murder is the crime.
Cops just to prosecute them as simple homicides, we don't know.
That's all. There's not a separate crime for ritualistic murder. It wouldn't change anything. It's a murder charge.
Coming up next, we have talked in this program so far, and you have heard the words about child abuse. A woman by the name of Cheryl Horton and others tell an even more grotesque story, ladies and gentlemen. Having babies to be turned over for human sacrifice to Satan. And we'll deal with that when we come back. I think sometimes that, ironically, on television, when you give a disclaimer, it has exactly the opposite to the intended effect, and more people tune in than tune out.
Oh my God, they got Clark Kent in the audience in the bottom left. Hi, Clark.
I'm going to say...
He's a journalist for the Daily Planet.
This as straight as I possibly can. I am begging you, if you're a parent and you've got kids there, that this subject is just too upsetting for your young children. Please get them out of the room or change the station. We urge you to exercise parental discretion. It has been established, as you have already seen on this program, in courts of law now, that human sacrifice is sometimes an element in rituals performed by people calling themselves Satanists. There is no longer any doubt about that, though just how often it actually is done is obviously impossible to know.
I'm going to imply it's a lot, though.
The ideal sacrifice, we are told, apparently requires babies. And there are those. People in satanic sex, including mothers who have belonged, who tell of babies being bred for sacrifice. Take a look, please.
Read what they do, guys. They use blood.
We're doing Rosemary's Baby. I'm going to skip that for copyright reasons.
Praise baby. Mia Farrow is drawn into the clutches of a satanic cult.
Maybe that's actually kind of an interesting parallel. If instead you weren't focused on the Rosemary's Baby story, look at Roman Polanski, the director. He's not a good guy. Angel with another $5 super chat says, Zealots like to add fake moral additional charges. It's similar to what they do to LGBTQ folk like us. I mean, there's not a charge for ritualistic murder, though, ever. So, like, what are they talking about?
And is married to the
There are no records of the pregnancies or births. Convenient. Penakagami says, why do so many people feel the need to miss the goddamn point in favor of obsessing over some stupid sensationalist bullshit? Conservatives do this all the time. Child abuse is the problem, but all they want to talk about is the sexuality of the perpetrators or something like that. I don't know. They're very identity-based. It has nothing to do with what the act is. It's the person doing it is what causes the bad. Not true, but it is, I think, how they see it.
This is no dream. This is really happening.
She conceives the Antichrist, providing the group with a living symbol of Satan to be worshipped and adored.
God is dead. Satan lives.
As sickening and unbelievable
Yes, this is a film.
As it sounds, bearing children for use in satanic rituals may really be happening.
My daughter, who I named Wendy, was sacrificed at birth with an upside-down cross and then taken outside and buried. My son, they kept and let live till 2 years old, and then he was sacrificed.
Michael and I had a son, and he was dedicated to Satan at birth. And at 6 months of age, he was sacrificed to Satan.
It is most common for the heart to be taken from a child and offered to Satan.
These women say they speak from personal experience. They claim to be breeders, forced by covens to bear children, both as a way for the cults to get new members and to find fresh victims for ritual murder.
Did you give birth to infants who were sacrificed?
My first two.
Were sacrificed?
Were sacrificed. I was told it was...
Shouldn't they be investigated now? The reality is most of the things that are mentioned on this, he mentions several, like, actual murders and the fact that the, like, satanic stuff is really irrelevant to it. But he tries to point that out. But this stuff is stuff where there isn't even an actual crime happening. It's just claims people are making. Probably not true claims. So it's just not being taken seriously because it probably didn't happen. This wasn't uncommon at the time. Again, I showed this earlier, but before the Raiders, I have a book all about the Satanic Panic. It's basically a collection of essays written by different authors about different subjects relating to the Satanic Panic. But this stuff was nuts. It was all over the place. There was basically mass hysteria. Delusional people were picking up on it and adding it to their delusions. People used it for their own ends. Just not good. I think I saw a picture of Bob Larson in here. Oh, that was a butt. Oh yeah, here's pictures of Bob after someone snuck into one of his seminars. Now we just post them to the internet, so you don't have to do that. But there's Bob Larson with a big head. What's the book title? This is Satanic Panic, Pop Cultural Paranoia in the 1980s.
Could ever do as a woman was to sacrifice my first two.
And you did that?
I was so brainwashed.
Put out by Fab Press, F-A-B Press.
I believed their philosophy.
Jackie
got it at
tells
a
us she
local
was
horror bookstore.
able to escape her satanic cult. Today she helps other women, like Donna, who are trying to break free. You killed your babies?
Take the skin off.
You skin the baby? You take the baby's skin off? Do you feel remorse? Have you told the police?
I had to do what I had to do, or I'd be killed like the babies that they made me watch killed, and that they put in my hand. They said, "Obey, or this is you."
Now, this sounds like a young woman with mental health problems that he's taking advantage of to get content for his shitty show.
Jackie, you have some pictures drawn during the therapy sessions by the people who've been through this. Why don't you show me some of them?
This picture is a person remembering skinning children and babies.
A horror bookstore, a whole bookstore of horror? Yeah, I live in an area that's big enough that they have, like, specialty shops and stuff. It's really great. I like it a lot.
And hanging it out to dry. Until skinning them, taking the skin off alive while they are alive.
Very cool. I don't want to give too many details for obvious reasons, but yeah, I have a local horror bookstore, and it's across the street from another bookstore that there's also records. There's a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of cool stuff.
Get them until they die.
And that's how your babies died?
They took a little patch about 3 by 4 off of her stomach, skinned her, and said, "We'll skin you all the way if you talk or cry." You learn not to cry real fast.
I don't cry.
For their part, mainstream Satanists strongly deny these gruesome allegations. Zena is the daughter of Anton LaVey, founder of the modern-day Church of Satan.
That's a popular misconception, too, is that children are sacrificed at the altar, that animals are used for sacrifices. And it's a horrible, horrible misconception.
This is real hard for the police because they can never find proof, and that's because the bodies are sometimes consumed for communion.
Even if that were the case, which it isn't, you can't eat every part of a human body. There would be remains. There would be bones. There would be, like, veins and sinew and, like, all sorts of cartilage. Like, you can't just get rid of an entire human body unless you have an industrial cremation oven.
Sometimes burned, sometimes put in concrete.
For proof, the women offered a few grisly photos. But as the Satanists are quick to point out, the images of death and decay are impossible to verify.
These middle-class
Look like they're from a museum.
that are worried that we want to abduct their children are barking up the wrong tree because we wouldn't want anything to do with their whole mediocre and corrupt lifestyle.
Is Baphomet also Satan or different? Different. Like evangelical Christians consider them the same, but they're not the same. It doesn't really matter. They're both fictional. So it's kind of it's hard to talk about stuff like this because when you ask a question like that, the answer in reality would be, it depends on who you ask. The evangelicals, who have a very one-dimensional idea of both Satan and the pop cultural figure of Baphomet, would say yes. In actuality, as far as the history of these characters goes, no.
Because the charges are so bizarre,
Most mental health professionals distance themselves from the entire area of Satanism.
But here in Denver, Colorado, the Bethesda Psychiatric Institute has become the first in the country to devote an entire department to treating the victims of ritual crime. Can we believe these stories of sacrifice?
I believe we need to believe them. They sound bizarre. They sound beyond the capacity of human beings. But the stories we receive are tremendously consistent.
Is this an epidemic?
I believe involvement in Satanism is increasing. I believe it is present in many communities around our country.
Have you noticed how many of these interviews aren't based on evidence? It's just either anecdotes, some of which are clearly from people with some instability issues, and other people going, I don't have evidence of this, but I feel it.
Our attention.
But somebody is apparently trying to discourage.
How many actual crimes went uninvestigated because these people were busy chasing wild geese? Going on, what's the thing? Going on snipe hunts, you know?
Scrutiny. We've talked to therapists who treat ritual abuse victims, and they tell us of the threats they've received.
I have direct knowledge of both death threats on a therapist and an attempt to end that therapist's life, which was unsuccessful.
Here in Chicago, a group of well-known therapists from all over the country had the courage to share horror stories of threats and intimidation.
Therapists have been directly threatened in ways that are quite alarming to them. The patient indicated to me that she wished to sacrifice the child with which she was pregnant. Naturally, I wasn't too enthusiastic about this. Shortly after this occurred, I started to get telephone death threats.
One of the things that I would add is that we are now...
From the patient? Because again, you're a therapist, you're trained in dealing with mentally ill people. You should do that instead of going on TV and sensationalizing something that isn't real to create a mass hysteria.
Hearing these reports from literally hundreds of therapists in every part of the United States.
Someone out there is telling us to back off.
Still, the greatest toll seems to be on the women who say that they have bred babies. Babies that were sacrificed for Satan.
I will probably have nightmares tonight about it, as I have about my Joey that I have been talking about. I wake up screaming for him now in the middle of the night. I dream that he's lost and I'm trying to find him.
Sickening, so incredibly outrageous, so incredibly unbelievable.
Oh my god, his fake, like, oh my god, you can tell his whole attitude here is so manufactured to try and seem like he's being solemn. Fuck you, Geraldo.
But Zena LeVay, are these women lying?
You have to understand that everything, every single thing you've given as examples of Satanism here are completely from a Christian standpoint. That everything you've put forth as being considered satanic is not considered satanic by my standard or my definition of Satanism.
Are these women lying?
Well, have the bodies been found? Where are they?
It puts her in such a shitty situation because no one wants to be there telling people who feel victimized that they're lying. And I think many of these women don't believe they're lying. They're not lying in the sense that they know something isn't true and they're, you know, just making shit up. I think a lot of them probably believe what they're saying. They're ill or they've been kind of coerced into believing things by certain terrible therapists. Again, it goes into that in that book that I was talking about. But to call them liars has certain connotations that are impossible. You're setting up a false dichotomy. It's not that they're necessarily liars in the traditional sense. They are mistaken in what has happened to them.
Cheryl Horton, who joins us via satellite from Los Angeles. Cheryl Horton. Zena LeVay, a Satanist who A, points out that this is not in keeping with her teaching, but B says, where is the proof? Where is the proof? Why is there no proof if what you're saying is true?
Hi, Geraldo. There's no proof for a fact of one thing. They burn the bodies. They either do that, they'll chop them up and dump them in the ocean, or they'll pour them in concrete.
You know how hot you have to get flame in order to burn a body? There's a reason you need professional crematoriums to do it. You can't just burn them on an open fire pit. You can't burn them in a normal oven. You need an industrial-grade oven from a crematorium in order to successfully do that.
Or they take and they use them for communion and eat them and then make bones out of the tools.
Cheryl, listen.
make tools out of the bones, I assume is what she's saying.
These
wouldn't be very good tools.
Stories, let me interrupt you. Cheryl, please, let me interrupt you. The stories dump in the ocean, chop up the bodies, these things, they sound like they can't be happening. Ted Gunderson, respected law enforcement professional.
Back this crazy lady up!
Recently, or retired now from the FBI, former regional director of Los Angeles. Do you, sir?
Yeah, where are the bone tools then? Yeah, that would be even more evidence.
Believe that these dreadful allegations of babies being sacrificed are true?
I absolutely believe it, without any doubt.
Mashing bones is like 900 degrees? I thought it was 1,200 degrees. Something along those lines. I thought it was like 1,200 to like 1,500. Let me look. $1,400 and 1,800 degrees, actually.
Yeah, based on the information that's been given to me across the country by numerous survivors and by confidential sources and informants.
Then why didn't you name these people and arrest them? Never a name, never an arrest. These women come out of a group and they insist that they know the people in the group, and yet they do not identify these large, mysterious cults. Name them and arrest them and get them off the street.
Does he not make a valid point?
He makes a valid point. The problem with that is, number one, police officers don't believe it. I may believe it. You may believe it. Some people in your audience may believe it. They don't believe it. Number two, if you decide to investigate these people, you have to, number one, handle it from an undercover operation. If you put an undercover operation into effect, then you have, in a sense, your own police officers become involved in these heinous crimes.
So wait, you're saying that if police went undercover, they would also become Satanists?
And they are, of course, become murderers. And in addition
what?
to that,
That's not how undercover work works. You can't just murder people undercover.
You do decide to investigate these people.
This guy's so full of shit.
There's a lot of work. And many law enforcement officers are apathetic and don't want to get involved.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard this. The debate here could rage over this issue alone for hours and hours and hours.
What a douche. Everything he says is just such horseshit. Can you not feel the manipulation dripping out of this disgusting man?
Michael Aquino is right when he says there have not been any successful prosecutions for this horrible allegation.
This episode lost them a lot of advertisers. Good.
Ted Gunderson is a sincere man with a good reputation who says that there are difficulties in the prosecution. Still, the point is it has never been proven in a court of law. Obviously, it needs more investigation, but if these things are
Gunderson became a right-wing conspiracy theorist, I'm shocked.
Happening, then there should be a national task force of federal and state and local cops working together to prove or disprove. Because this is just unacceptable, this impasse. Coming up, we're going to have warning signs.
It's not an impasse. You manufactured the appearance of an impasse on a non-issue.
You should watch for, parents, and all of our guests will be available for a final discussion about Satanism after this break. Father LeVar, from the point of view of the Catholic Church.
This is making me miss the classiness of Jerry Springer. Freyline, thanks for gifting 5 Tier 1 subs. Ooh, and Twitch added 3 bonus subs. Very nice, thank you.
Is this...
Yeah, Twitch is doing a thing where they're throwing on added subs to gift subs over 5, which is incredible.
Something Catholic...
It's only until the end of the month, though.
Parents, and I'm not singling out the Roman Catholic faith. Obviously, this affects children of all races, colors, creeds, religions. It seems particularly strong, as you've seen over the course of the last 2 hours, to be very strong in the so-called Bible Belt among fundamentalist Christians. But from the point of view of the Roman Catholic Church, is this something for parents to be concerned about?
Something very much for parents to be concerned about, because in our Catholic theology, we know the power of the devil. We know the influence that the devil can have directly and indirectly. And whether you want to deny it, as the Church of Satan people want to do, or call it by another name, it doesn't matter. It's the power of evil, the force of evil, and it's that thing which disrupts ordinary human life, which, as we've seen, happening so often. So it is necessary for parents to beware. And
Dr. Aquino, is it the force of evil? Does it disrupt? Is it a force for everything negative?
Well, if you're talking about Satanism as legitimate Satanists define it, absolutely not. It is ethical, it is above ground, it is positive. If you are talking about the devil as it is defined by religions such as Father Labar's, then it is, in fact, a symbol of degenerate behavior, and this is part of our problem tonight.
Should we have warnings, sir, the way we do on cigarette packs, for people coming into your houses of worship?
What is this hatchet job?
This sect may be dangerous to your health and the health of the people you know.
No, because in the case of the Temple of Set and the Church of Satan, we have not had any problems with criminal behavior.
And yet when you hear story after story after story of people committing these wretched crimes...
How about we ask the Catholic priest about his fellow brethren of the cloth?
These violent crimes in the devil's name.
I think we might get a few things there.
You find one common thread to that all these people that you've shown tonight come from a background in which their moral instruction has been from a religious tradition other than ours. It may be Father Labar's, it may be some other mainstream one, but it is not that of Satanism.
Sean Sellers, condemned to die by lethal injection because of the murder of your mother, your stepfather, and a convenience store clerk. You've heard the Satanists say that it is not the teaching that is wrong.
Yeah, I think it's the Church of Set, as in Egyptian Set.
The person that's wrong. Are you using Satanism as a cover for your violence?
No, I'm not. I've heard quite a few, well, I can call them as lies on the show right now. I've heard Dr. Aquino say that Satanism is not, or the ideals that we're talking about here are not Satanism. That is because Satanists believe that good is evil and evil is good. And so...
No, they don't!
Of course they're not the ideals that he believes in. He believes that evil is good.
Benny Kagami with 40-bit says, isn't it convenient how there are constant built-in excuses why they can't provide any of this or investigate it in any way that wouldn't involve an authoritarian crackdown? The shit got so bad that the BAU, which is the Behavioral Analysis Unit of the FBI, had to debunk all of this. A lot of these people got publicly disgraced.
That is what I believed in. I heard him say that the Satanic Bible is not to be taken literally, but I talked to a 16-year-old boy yesterday who takes the Satanic Bible literally. I've been working with a lot of ministries around the United States trying to get and help people get out of the occult. He takes the Satanic Bible literally. I took it literally. A lot of people are taking the Satanic Bible literally. And I heard Anton LaVey's daughter say that these babies who are being sacrificed, you know, it's not Satanism. Or she wouldn't answer to saying that it was. The fact of the matter is that kids are abducted, teenagers are drawn into the occult, and a lot of them are being used for occult sacrifices. And there's been so much on the show that you've shown so much pain and blood and all this other gore and stuff, but you really haven't shown how to get out of the occult for those who want to get out. There is, let me tell you a story about a friend of mine.
Tell it briefly, Sean, go ahead.
Just give me 1.5 minutes.
Go ahead.
Her name is, anyway, she works with the Watch Network in Texas, and she told me that a lady called her and said, my daughter's involved in Satanism and I want her to get out, but I don't want her to become some kind of Jesus freak or anything like that. Sue told her, I'm sorry, I can't help you. A month later, the girl was living with her aunt and uncle because her mother was in an insane asylum, and she was threatening to kill her aunt and uncle.
What's your point, Sean?
She destroyed 3 lives, her mother's, herself, and her aunt and uncle's, because she didn't want her mother didn't want her to become a Jesus freak. I want to tell you right now, there is no other way out of Satanism except...
Oh, yeah, here it is.
Jesus Christ.
Do you believe in the devil to this day?
I believe in the devil, but I don't worship the devil. I'm a Christian. I stand up boldly and proudly and proclaim my faith in Jesus.
Oh, God, he converted in prison, and he's using this as an excuse to convert people to Christianity. Oh, God. I'll take the moral advice from a murderer. Woo!
Jesus. I'm telling you, there is no way out of Satanism except through Christ.
Do you feel a sense of frustration that people don't believe you when you talk about what happened to your daughter?
Yes, I do. The problem with this whole issue is that because the crimes are so heinous, that people don't want to believe that an adult would do this to a child. And I don't know about the Church of Satan or the Temple of Set. I can't say that they had anything to do with what happened to my child. But if you look at a child's behavior, a child who's been ritually abused, there is no way that you can say that these things that they're talking about didn't happen to them. From the nightmares...
He might be using it to get his death sentence converted to life. I hope he did, honestly. I'm not big on the death sentence, and he was 15 when that murder happened. Like, don't get me wrong, he's culpable, but I think he was also mentally ill, so not culpable in that sense. He probably needs a lot of, like, mental health care. H-Bear, thanks for 45 months.
To the running around the room when they disclose to the latching on, to the crying and saying...
Oh, that's a sub-baby, too. This sub-baby's name is going to be Anton Legay.
Mommy, 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 don't go out, because if you go out, they're going to kill you. Threats, intimidation, fear. That's how this happened to my child and children all across the country. And it may have nothing to do with Dr. Aquino or Miss LeVay. All I know is what's happening to kids all over the country. They're being ritually abused. I don't know who's behind it, but it's happening. And parents have to be aware that children are not lying. Police officers have to listen to children. Listen to what they're saying and look at their behavior, because a child cannot talk like you and I, who's been ritually abused.
We'll be right back. All of us know that life is not safe. Every day we face the possibility of crime and disease and accidents and disasters. So here comes Satanism, which most of us would like to write off as harmless antics by some lunatic fringe. A few years ago, maybe, but not now. We have seen that Satanism can be linked to dope and to pornography, child abuse, and to murder. It has led seemingly normal teenagers into monstrous behavior. They preach mysticism. Other people, however, practice evil. And that is why we brought you this report tonight. I'd like to thank all of our guests, especially those we did not have a chance to get to. I'm Geraldo Rivera, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Good night.
I wish I had listened to the music. I wish I had thrown it out. I wish I had gone to school and talked to him. Talk to his friends' mothers. Maybe they saw some things that I didn't see. Maybe if we put them together, we could have come up with something. I don't know, but I just think setting back and assuming that this is a teenager's life, when you see things like that, I know for a fact is wrong. I think that my son believed in Satan. In fact, he has said to me that he did believe in Satan. He believed in the power of Satan. He believed if he served Satan, that Satan would give him something in return for his servitude.
It's all false, man. It just leads to your own destruction. Look where I'm at, look at my sentence. I'm in jail with life without parole.
James, there is no way out of Satanism except through Christ.
That's their ending note? Really? God damn. All right. Well, that was fun. I'm glad y'all hung out for that. I like the satanic stuff. We might do the Satanic Panic stuff semi-regularly, because I have a bunch of other stuff I pulled out that we didn't have time for today. I am so sorry. Please don't be mad at me for this. I'm really hungry. I think I have to reschedule the patron-only live show, but this is the last one I'm going to reschedule for quite a while. I will do a patron-only live show every Sunday of October, and they're going to be spooky-themed. So if you want, join the Patreon or become a YouTube member, and all during the month of October, every Sunday, we'll be doing a special spooky patron-only stream. It'll be fun. So yes, join us for that. Apologize. I've been going through some stuff recently, and it's just been kind of hard. So I'm sorry that those have been less, regular than they had been. Yeah, what was the cleanse? Wasn't this, was it? It was this? It's a vegan black metal chef. I'm kind of worried about the music. For copyright reasons. That's pretty fucking incredible. Is the song the recipe too? That's incredible. That's great. Thanks for showing me that. Ooh, Power Rangers Wild Force behind the scenes. This is the show that Chili was gonna be on. I wish we had behind the scenes footage of Chili on it. Love you too, Mr. Blast. Okay, I'm getting ADHD. I need to raid someone. Also, if you haven't already, if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already given me a subscription, at least give me a like. I'd appreciate it. And on Twitch, if you haven't already, please give me a follow. I do stuff almost every day. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, maybe hang out. Where are we gonna raid? Moon Cat's live.
Back and forth. That's not a thing.
We'll raid Mooncat. Alright, have a great night, everyone. See you soon. I'm not sure if I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. I might not because the new Starfield DLC's out. So I might not. Just depends. If I do, it'll be earlier in the day. So either we'll get an earlier stream or we won't get a stream and I might take a couple days off. But after that, we'll be back at it. Watching weird stuff. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. Have a great night. I'll see you all soon.